evening with a public hearing. I'd like to call to order public hearing on conditional use, the Legacy Boxing and Combat Academy. This is a public hearing of the College Township Council on April 2nd of 2026. The purpose of this hearing is to establish the findings of fact regarding the Legacy Boxing and Combat Academy request to operate in the General Industrial Zoning District as a conditional use. At this time, I'd like to invite the College Township Principal Planner, Lindsay Schock, to present a summary report on Legacy Boxing and Combat Academy's request.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Chair. So we are here tonight for the public hearing regarding permitting an indoor recreational facility in the General Industrial Zoning District. This public hearing is a requirement of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. About a year ago, the council decided that indoor recreation facilities should be permitted as conditional uses in the General Industrial Zoning District to accommodate the use, since we anticipate that use being permitted by right when the hybrid form-based code that is currently being drafted is established in the Dale Summit area. Until that time, indoor rec facilities are conditional uses. That means that they're more of a public process. That is why we are here tonight. And conditional uses also allow council to provide more information. It's a more public process and allows them to put on any additional conditions that are reasonable for the use. The township solicitor is online tonight for his any input that he may have, and the applicant's attorney is also available this evening to discuss the process further.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite the College Township Solicitor, Louis Glantz, to present a review of our procedural details as needed.
Your review tonight is to listen to the applicant and following. I think what you're really asking is, you don't have to make a decision tonight. It pretty much follows the procedure of the zoning hearing board, although you're the council, but it's pretty much the same procedure. After that, you can ask questions. You can continue the hearing for more testimony if you want. What's more likely is you'll continue the hearing for the purpose of deliberation. You'll be permitted to deliberate an executive session, and then at a public meeting, render a decision. And as long as you continue the hearing, you don't have to re-advertise it. I think that was one of the questions. I had spoken with Attorney Engel 2 days ago about this, and he's in agreement with that's the process. So they're not really expecting you vote on a decision tonight. You would be expected to vote within 45 days. So it doesn't even have to be your very next meeting. And in between there, you can have an executive session with me, and we can discuss it. And if there's any legal questions you have, we can bring it up then. So tonight is evidence gathering. You have a stenographer there, so there'll be a written record. If you need the stenographer's transcript in order to make your decision, you won't be able, I'm sure you won't be able to make it by the next meeting. You can ask Ms. Boring how soon you could have the transcript if you feel it's necessary. You don't necessarily have to have the transcript to make your decision. Did any of you have any questions you wanted to ask me about that?
Do any members of council have questions for Mr. Glantz? Thank you very much.
Okay.
At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. David Engel as the attorney representing Channel Communications.
Good evening, council members. I'm here, I brought Penny Hain, a representative of the landowner, to provide any testimony. I have some direct prepared, or you can ask her questions, whichever way you would like to do it. And for the record, I would note, I did give to Lindsay earlier proof that we properly advertised the hearing twice in the CDT, and then we also sent letters to everybody within 1,500 feet, which was a lot of letters, by the way. And so we have those proofs in the record up there. And if you'd like, I could call my client to start to go over some basic testimony, and then you guys could add questions, whichever way you prefer.
Okay. Yes, if you would call your client, then she could give her testimony.
And where would you like her to be? Can she?
She should be at the podium with you. And
okay.
If she could introduce herself and where she lives, please.
My name is Karen. What was your name, Penny?
Penny Hain,
H-A-I-N. Yes. H-A-I-N?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I asked. Okay, if you raise your right hand, please, only to swear you in. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Penny, could you state your name for the record?
Penny Hayne.
And are you a representative of the landowner for the site in question?
I know.
And what's the name of the landowner?
Channel Communications, but we're a family
Oh.
business.
Okay, and where's your family business based?
Lewistown,
Okay. And how long have you owned the building that's the subject of this application?
17 years.
And what types of uses have you had in that building?
Office space, warehousing, light industrial. We have printing,
Okay.
and of course legacy boxing.
And how long has, I believe, Lindsay, everybody from council has the packet that had all the exhibits in it, is that accurate?
Yes.
So council, you've had a chance to see the photographs as well as the lease and all those items, okay. So how long has Legacy been in there?
I think they're like 2.5 years
Okay.
they've been in there.
And since Legacy has been there, have there been any issues with traffic coming, automobile traffic coming in to get people to the gym?
No,
Have you had any issues with automobile traffic leaving the facility to get out of it?
no,
Okay. What about pedestrian access, either egress or ingress? Any problems with any of that?
no. I mean, we have walkways, sidewalks the whole way back to the boxing academy. And we have ample lighting.
And you provided photographs that I think all the council members have.
Yes.
Do they accurately depict the outside of your premises? You had some outside shots,
I
right?
don't remember what those pictures
Okay.
are, but I'm assuming, yes.
And do you recall that you asked Derek, and maybe you took some photos as well, of the inside of the facility?
Yes,
And do they accurately depict what you've seen when you've been in there when Derek is conducting
yes.
the boxing gym? Have you ever had any complaints from any neighbors about the Legacy use?
No,
There was one comment that we heard from staff relating to at the rear entrance, maybe adding an exterior light. Would you be willing to add, if that were a condition of council, an exterior light at the rear of the building?
yes. Yes, I think that's on the side of the building where his main entrance would be. I mean, there's a couple of entrances into the boxing academy, but
And which one do most people use? Do you know? Is that the one we're talking about? or-
it's like 50-50.
Okay.
They use a corner one which has ample lighting and the exterior entrance, which is what you're speaking of.
Okay.
It's, again, it's 50-50.
Okay. But you have no problem adding a light if that
Oh, no.
is required?
No.
And are you requesting the council grant your conditional use application?
Yes, please.
That's all the questions I have for her.
Okay, all right. At this time,
You can ask
the
Louis
owner
if-
of the, Louis, at this time, do we need to ask for any additional information? The owner of the business, I believe, has just joined us.
You can if you want to, you don't have to, but you certainly are entitled to.
Okay. Rich, do you have any questions you'd like answered? Any further questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Tracy, do you have any questions? Eric, do you have any further questions you'd
Yeah,
like answered?
do you also own the adjacent property that used to be the Comcast?
No.
Okay. I am correct in my orientation, right? That-
You are correct, but no, we just have the channel communications bill.
Okay, it's just weird because that's you would think
Yeah.
that,
We bought the building for the TV station in the front half.
okay.
Supposedly, we built the TV station in the front half.
So it's just a
Supposedly.
coincidence, I guess, that,
Pardon me?
it's just a coincidence that Comcast was right next to you.
Right.
Okay, I think my other questions could be answered by staff during the agenda item.
Okay. Gretchen, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, just if the owner wants to say anything, then,
I'll call him
Okay.
next. Yeah.
I was going to call him.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, we'll call him next. I believe Mr. Roth?
Yes.
If you would come to the podium and tell us your name and where you live.
What's your name, sir? Your name, sir?
Derek Roth,
D-E-R-T-H?
REK. Yes, ma'am.
So if you raise your right hand, please, I'll need you to swear in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Hi, Derek. Could you please state your full name again for council?
Yeah, Derek Roth.
And what's your occupation?
I own a gym and I coach boxing at Penn State.
And what was your background?
I had a construction company for a while. My background other than that was I did martial arts, competed in MMA and boxed, kickboxed growing up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you hold any certifications in boxing or in martial arts?
Yes, I am a USA Boxing certified coach, certified in CPR and AED every 2 years. I do Safe Sport, that's every year for USA Boxing, that we're required for, working with youth and people like that. My wife also is certified in both of them. We go through those testings every year. I do the Clariac certification every year because I coach at Penn State. I'm a certified Muay Thai coach, catch wrestling coach.
Okay. And what services do you offer at the Legacy Gym at this subject site?
Cardio boxing. We do have an MMA program that's kickboxing and some grappling. We have a women's only boxing class and we have a youth boxing class.
And with respect to the youth boxing class, what percentage is related to the youth boxing?
They have 2 times a week on Monday and Friday afternoon.
And what about the women's?
Women's classes are on Monday and Wednesday, 6:15 to 7:30.
I think you also testified not too long ago in front of the Planning Commission, and you brought up something about Parkinson's therapy. Tell us a little bit about that.
I took 2 of my boxers to compete to a Parkinson's charity in Pittsburgh at the Shriners. While we were there, I met up with a Penn State alumni who used to box for the team, and he's been working with people in the western part of Pennsylvania for Parkinson's disease. It helps their motor skills and balance and all that. And he just sent me the information to look at the places around here that have people that need that help.
There were some questions at the Planning Commission about the use of the word combat in your name. Why is that word in the name of your gym?
So combat sport is wrestling, boxing, anything that involves some sort of combat. All martial arts are a combat sport if they're done in a sport type of way also. I put it in there because growing up I felt mixed martial arts was becoming kind of cliche for a title, so I wanted something that meant the same but didn't sound the same.
Okay. So to differentiate yourself from the competitions.
Correct.
Okay. And another question that came up in front of the PC was, do you ever do any training involving weapons at the facility?
No.
No.
No, and if we did, it would be in a self-defense form, if that would be something someone would,
But that's not, the classes you referenced about kids and women,
Right.
they don't do any of that?
No,
right?
none of that.
Okay. Kenny talked earlier about the 2 entrances. Explain the 2 entrances and what the percentage of use is of each.
The percentages of the use for the entrance is the main entrance with the long walkway. That's what most people walk in. Now for myself, like if I'm carrying something, because I'm always taking 5 gallons of water, stuff like that, in and out, I usually use the back entrance, or my wife or somebody will use it. The kids, parents sometimes will drop them off there and pick them up, but the majority is everyone comes through the front entrance, just because that's not even our parking lot over there, so I try to remind them of that. They will try to do it if it's raining really hard, because it's about a 40-yard walk on the sidewalk if it's raining hard. Other than that, most people use the front entrance like they're supposed to.
Okay. Have you ever noticed any problem with any pedestrians getting in or out of the building?
About 6 months ago, I had a woman bring her son. He was getting in trouble in school a lot. She was in a wheelchair. She was able to access every part of the gym. As it worked, he was in the youth classes. She went everywhere he went, into the 2 separate rooms that he with him, and she had no problem.
And what about, same question with respect to automobile access in and out? Any problems?
No.
Okay. And would you like the council to approve the conditional use request?
I most certainly would.
That's all the questions I have, if the council has any.
Rich, do you have any further questions for Mr. Roth?
I do. Mr. Roth, either you or I believe the owner is still under oath, is that correct? To our owner is still under oath if they need assistance? I'm asking.
So is Penny, correct? You?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you currently hold a Center Region Code occupancy permit for this use for that space in your name?
I don't believe I do.
Okay. How about a fire safety permit?
You don't have any in my name? no?
Yes, he does.
Okay, that's why I was hoping you might be able to help. Usually they go to the landlord, so, okay, that's all the questions I had, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Tracy?
I did not have any questions.
Eric, do you have questions?
The same questions that Rich had, but to be open about this, those are code issues, internal access, ADA access, particularly internal to the building, would all fall under code. Correct?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Richard?
No.
Okay. All right. Then, thank you, Mr. Roth. Mr. Engel, if there are no further comments from your clients or you, do you have further comments?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not going to exhibits where you want to mark them. I didn't get any, if you want any exhibits marked that you referred to.
They're all in the packet. You want me to, I can bring you forward. It's all one pack. I'll bring it.
This needs transcribed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite any public comment from anyone in the room or anyone online. Is there any public comment at this time? Okay.
I think he raised his hand.
Who raised their hand?
With the orange and the black jacket.
Sir, do you have a public comment?
That's it. Yeah. Why don't you give it out? All right, that's fine. Thanks. Thank you.
Susan, I think he was looking for something else.
Okay. Sir, just to clarify, did you have a comment? Somebody saw you raising your hand.
Sorry, it's about a liquor agenda item.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. Louis, before I take a motion to adjourn the meeting, is there anything else we need to do as part of, or adjourn the hearing? Is there anything else we need to do?
Chairman, don't adjourn it, continue it.
Okay, continue it.
So that you can make a decision at
Okay.
the meeting without
Yep.
re-advertising.
Got it. All right. Then I will take a motion to continue this hearing to be held at a later meeting date of the College Township Council.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. No, the motion carries unanimously, and I will close the hearing with that.
And Adam, I promised my wife I would go to dinner with her family in a few minutes, so I'm not going to stay for the rest of the meeting, if that's okay.
That's fine by me. Cut down on that bill, Louis. Thank you.
Okay, see you. Bye, Anna.
It's not.
Thank you, Louis.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Louis.
So someone will call me if you want to transcribe.
Yes.
Thank you. Otherwise, I'll send them
Okay. Well, next, I will call to order the regular meeting of the College Township Council for April 2nd, 2026. Will all those who are present and who can, please rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start the meeting, I would like to announce that council met in executive session prior to the meeting this evening to discuss a personnel matter. First order of business this evening is public open discussion. For any items that are not on this agenda, we invite the public at this time to comment, and please limit comments to 5 minutes. Any online? Okay.
Good evening. Is that working? Sue Smith, Chair of the Lamont Village Association. I just wanted to give you a big thank you for the cooperation with the railroad crossing on Mount Nittany Road. The workers from the Bellefonte Historic Railroad are working to get ready for everything, and they are all smiles. They're so glad they can do the whole project. And I sent out a notice. I haven't had any complaints. I don't know if Amy's had any complaints from anybody that the road's going to close, but we'll see.
Close the road, yeah.
But a lot of people got the message, so I think that's a really good thing. And also, we are working on getting a stairway up the hill below that. And we have some new ideas about concrete that might be easier. And it would connect the sidewalk to the Center for Wellbeing and down to Pike Street. So that may be something on your agenda in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue.
Are we going to be able to fill the track with concrete?
Yes.
Okay.
Susan, can I say something?
Sure.
I just wanted to share that I had also heard from someone else that the communication and help with the township staff on this was phenomenal, and that the same thing Sue just said, but the railroad folks were, it made their, I'd say, month maybe. I mean, it sounded so positive, and just being new on council, I'll tell you, I hear stuff like that about College Township staff all the time. So I just wanted to give a shout out.
Excellent.
Thank you.
They obviously had no objection to the concrete.
They are a little concerned because they don't have too many crossings that are concrete. But we worked through a design. We actually contacted the company that owns Transfer Road that was concrete, that went back to asphalt. But they had details for us to follow, and so it was collected
Okay,
after.
so they had never put, I mean, I thought it was a budget thing with them.
Right, no, it's usually it is asphalt, but
Okay, because it's cheaper.
yes, usually. So,
Thank you.
Is it okay to make a comment about a later agenda item?
Not at this time. We'll ask that you hold your comments for that later agenda item. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. And thank you, Gretchen. Next item up is new agenda items. Do any members of council have any items they would like to add to the agenda tonight that are de minimis in nature? Okay, our next item is a special presentation from CenterSafe from the Executive Director, Jen Penchik. Jen, before you give the presentation, we do have a proclamation, and we'll need to pull that from our consent agenda. We'll read that and then invite you to give your presentation if we may. So at this time, I would ask that we pull CA-3A, a proclamation P-26-04 from the consent agenda. And I would take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. I would take a second. Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We're getting good at this. All right. This is a proclamation of the Township of College Center County, Pennsylvania, recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, a time to draw attention to the prevalence of sexual assault, raise public awareness, educate communities, and empower individuals to take steps to prevent sexual assault here in Center County. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment harm our community. In the United States alone, nearly 1 in 4 women and 1 in 26 men have experienced a completed or attempted rape sometime in their lives. Almost half of all transgender people have been sexually assaulted at some point in their lives, and these rates are even higher for trans people of color. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. And whereas we must work together to educate our community about what can be done to prevent sexual assault and how to support survivors. And whereas anyone can be a leader in preventing and ending sexual violence. As employers, educators, parents, and friends, we all have an obligation to uphold the basic principle that every individual should be free from violence and fear. And whereas 2026 marks the 25th anniversary of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and the theme this year is Looking Back, Moving Forward, Turning Awareness into Action. The campaign emphasizes the importance of collective action in addressing and preventing sexual abuse, assault, and harassment. It also works to shift the ways our communities understand, talk about, and respond to sexual abuse, assault, and harassment. We can challenge harmful misconceptions and foster safer communities by learning and taking action together. This campaign also seeks to unite us in uplifting the voices of survivors, particularly those from underserved and marginalized communities, to build a more inclusive movement. By incorporating intersectionality, how race, gender, and identity shape survivor experiences, we can work towards a future that leaves no one behind and empowers everyone to take action to end sexual violence. And whereas Center Safe, which continues to celebrate its 50th anniversary, is urging Center County residents to support and believe survivors, work together to educate our community about sexual violence prevention, and speak out against harmful attitudes and actions. And now therefore be it resolved that the College Township Council does hereby proclaim April 2026 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and calls upon all citizens in Center County to support survivors and take action to prevent sexual violence, not only during the month of April, but every day of the year. This proclamation is authorized on the second day of April 2026 by the College Township Council, Center County, Pennsylvania. And you do have a presentation for us this evening, Ms. Penchik, and you would come to the podium and give us your name and where you live. And
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Pensick, and I am the Executive Director of Center Safe, and I actually live not too far away in Ferguson Township. And thank you so much for having me. I've been teasing that I'm kind of making the rounds with all the different townships, because something that's been really important to me is, especially as we honor April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I just want to make sure as many people as possible know about resources, but also just like what the theme has said, it's not just about raising awareness, but it's figuring out what would we like to do to stop this from happening. So I appreciate you just giving me a little bit of time from your meeting to talk more about this. And Mike's going to be my fantastic clicker tonight. Thank you, Mike. So really quick, I just want to highlight a little bit about Center Safe, because just like the proclamation said, we are blessed that we have been able to serve Center County for the past 5 decades. I will say, nonprofit life is not for the faint of heart. So to make it 5 decades, I'm quite proud of that. Not that I've been around for the 5 decades, but I just know the work that that Center Safe and so many other amazing organizations do. So I just want to honor that work a little bit tonight. So Center Safe began way back when, in 1975, very much started in a very small room, founded primarily by a group of women who got together. And quite frankly, they had had enough. They had neighbors ringing their doorbells and knocking on their doors with black eyes. People talking somewhat about sexual assault, but not even having that terminology, and having nowhere to send people. No hotlines, no shelters, none of those places, and left with the feelings of just what do we do with all of this? So they got together and created what was then the Center County Women's Resource Center. And really, fast forward 5 decades, and we changed our name in 2018 to Center Safe. And now we serve all corners of Center County and beyond. So tonight I'm just going to highlight some of those resources. Next slide, Mike. Thank you. So really the goal of Center Safe is that one day, honestly, we aren't needed as much as we are, and that there just are folks who are not being harmed, and that what do you mean that there was sexual assault and that there was domestic violence? That is the ultimate goal. But I can say with just all the facts that we are not anywhere close to that yet. Center Safe is in incredibly high demand. Unfortunately, there are incredibly high rates of sexual assault within Center County, domestic violence and stalking, affecting folks of all ages. We are here, though, to be the safety net for people. We are here to serve as much as we can, but to also make sure that people feel empowered to make choices that are right for them. So as opposed to us saying, you must call police, or you must make a report, or you must get a protection order, we follow something called the empowerment model. So we are going to help clients with goals. We're going to help inform them of resources and help them through that process, but they get to decide what they want to do. We actually call it driving the bus. So when you come to Center Safe, when you contact us, you are driving the bus. For the most part, you get to control what happens next. Because we find, whether we're talking about sexual abuse, whether we're talking about domestic abuse, they've already had pieces of themselves chipped away. So we want to help them put those pieces back together. It's not about that you will ever be the same as you were before. There will be a new shape, there will be a new form. But it's about just recognizing what they've experienced and just helping them take that step forward. Next slide. So in terms of the services that we provide, starting with our 24-hour hotline, we get approximately 1,200 to 1,500 calls to our hotline every single year. Again, the folks calling the hotline are primarily from Center County, but we get calls from outside the county as well. These are folks calling, wanting information, everything from services to protection orders to just wanting a helpful voice to talk to. We do help people get protection from abuse orders. In terms of medical advocacy, we get called out to the hospitals at 2 in the morning, at 2 p.m., on Saturdays, on holidays, every day of the week. We are the agency that gets called out if someone is getting a sexual assault exam, if someone is getting a domestic violence exam, and they, want/need an advocate. We're actually part of the team that will support them through that often lengthy process. We provide emergency shelter and housing. We probably see approximately 200 or so individuals and families needing shelter and housing from us during the year. Our Sylvia Stein shelter is on site in State College. We have approximately 12 or 13 bedrooms. The top 2 floors of Center Safe is the shelter. We see and support folks of all ages there, but we also have housing programs as well. We also provide no-cost legal services to our clients and to those who are fleeing violence. So it's called the Civil Legal Representation Project. We are a small but mighty office, but if you imagine barriers for victims and survivors, I want you to imagine what navigating the court system without an attorney would feel like, especially when your abuser perhaps has an attorney. It is not a pretty picture. But access and also affordability is a big barrier for people. So all of our services, including our legal services, are of no cost to our clients. And the next slide, please. For ongoing services, everything from outreach and education, which you'll see me buzzing all over Center County, everything from staff trainings to presentations like these. Really, it's not just about after something happens, but it's what role can we all play on the prevention side and being proactive. We provide counseling and advocacy that includes support groups. We have advocates who can meet just with children. So, sadly, again, clients are of all ages. And then we also have supervised visitation and safe custody exchanges through our Child's Access Center, which is in Bellefonte, which some folks might remember started probably leaning toward 20 years ago after a really horrendous domestic violence fatality. And now there's just a safer place for people to go for those services. Next slide. Go ahead. There we go. Just some stats that might be helpful for people. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced severe physical violence by an intimate partner during their lifetime. Every 68 seconds, a person living in the U.S. is sexually assaulted. So on average, there are more than 463,000 victims every single year. And more than 3 women and 1 man are murdered by their intimate partners in the U.S. every day. So what is sexual violence? Sexual violence basically is any type of unwanted sexual contact or behavior. These are just all the different categories of sexual violence, everything from rape to sexual assault to indecent assault. I always just use the umbrella term sexual violence. Sometimes we make things more complicated than they need to be, right? So any type of unwanted sexual contact, we do a lot of education around consent, but also around bystander intervention. So it's not just about the people involved, but it's when we all see and hear the things that we know we see and hear all the time. What role are we going to play to help people get out of that situation? Next slide, please. And then I always want to highlight domestic violence because a lot of times these issues go very hand in hand. So domestic violence is more when there's a pattern of behavior. I do want to stress it's not about gender, it is about power and control. And it's about a power imbalance, and it's about that behavior. So perpetrators will use a variety of tools, again, to kind of get their hooks into someone. That's why you see many people stay in really abusive relationships, but even when we connect back to sexual assault, you'll see lots of barriers for people, whether it's blame, whether it's fear. There's just so much victim blaming that happens all over, I cannot even tell you. So that's the biggest thing too, is like if we can be mindful of the things that we say and do, because we don't know the lived experiences of the people even in this room, right? So when we're talking about sexual assault, when we're talking about domestic violence, use words with care and use actions with care. Next slide, please. Now, the cycle of violence, really quickly, I just want to highlight, because every situation is so different. However, the behaviors that abusers will use are actually very textbook. So you'll start with the honeymoon phase, then you'll kind of evolve into more tension building. That's where people might start making comments. That's where people might try to start isolating you, whether geographic isolation or just saying, no, don't go out with your friends, stay home with me. Are you really gonna wear that? You know, you've been going out to, you know, too many meetings, like just stay here. And it's like little dots that you have a tough time connecting. From there, it's going to evolve into some sort of climactic event. So it could be where there's an incident of sexual abuse. It could be where there's physical violence. That's where the part where many people naively will say, well, why didn't that person leave? Because whether we're talking about sexual abuse or domestic abuse, a lot of times you obviously know the people involved, like you know the person who has harmed you. And those who don't have that direct connection will often think, oh, well, that would never be me, and I would just leave. But we have to remember, though, that right away you're back in that honeymoon phase, and that's where you get a lot of the love bombing and the I love yous and I'm so sorry, and I'll never do that again. And you know, you kind of made me do it, or I did that because I loved you, and you just feel like you have whiplash. So it's just this sick kind of cycle. So again, that's why I always stress, be mindful of what you say and do, because there's so many people trapped in this cycle. Next slide, please. Again, it's just about power and control. Again, not about gender. A lot of times you'll have multiple forms of abuse present at once. It could be sexual violence mixed with domestic violence, mixed with financial abuse. And leaving abusers is incredibly difficult. So on average, it takes someone about 7 to 12 times to leave, go back, before they leave for good, if they're able to. We have had incidents where abusers will shift the violence, let's say, and maybe not abuse the human, but maybe will abuse pets or animals or threaten to harm family. And that kind of keeps a victim with their abuser a lot of times. But there's just various kind of tools that abusers will use: coercion, threats, again, the I'm sorries, and again, it just feels like whiplash. There's no other way to kind of describe it. Next slide. I always want to highlight barriers. Again, it takes 7 to 12 times before someone leaves for good. These are just some of the barriers. There are so many more, but I think fear is just such a big one. I think fear of being believed, and as many times as I've been to the hospital as an advocate to help victims through the process, so many at least have a little bit of self-doubt and a little bit of, I shouldn't have been where I was, I shouldn't have been talking to this person, I shouldn't have been drinking, I shouldn't have been doing all these things. So as much as we stress a victim is never at fault, it's the seeds of blame that get planted. So we do as much as we can to help people realize that it is never their fault when someone sexually assaults them or abuses them in any sort of way. But I think society tells us that there's blame for victims and excuses for perpetrators, and a lack of holding people accountable who cause this kind of abuse. Next slide. Really quickly, I just want to touch upon the effect of this with our mental health. From PTSD to anxiety to masking and numbing the pain that they have been through. It shouldn't be a shock to anyone to realize that there are high rates of mental health issues. A lot of that can also be kind of attributed to trauma, so to sexual abuse, to domestic violence. These are not easy things to get over, nor is the healing linear. So you will often find folks who maybe are acting different than you think you would. Could be folks who are sexually active shortly after being sexually assaulted. Maybe people are going out. Maybe people are just having really big behavior changes. But then you will also see just a huge impact on their mental health and also the mental health of the people around them. Next slide. So how do we make it work? Again, nonprofits, again, are not for the faint of heart, but we are incredibly passionate about the work we do. Each and every member of the Center Safe staff in particular, they are called to do this work. And I would say you have to be called to do this work. You have to, because you can go off and work probably most other places and not have to deal with a lot of the things that we do. Like a lot of our staff, just their entire days are nothing but trauma, but you find the nuggets of each day, right? We want to see a time, again, where we are not needed. But what is kind of healing for us as staff is when we see clients thrive, whether it's clients who can now get their own apartment, clients who are ready to say the words out loud. We just had Take Back the Night last night. There were probably 200 people on campus who marched. Many of those people spoke. Many of the people shared that that night at Take Back the Night was the first times that they said the words out loud, that at some point in their life they were raped or had been sexually assaulted or whatever terminology they used. That was their first time saying that out loud. That is huge, and that is healing. It may not seem like a big thing, but it really is, because when you can say the words out loud, then you can start putting the pieces back together. We partner with many, many, many organizations. Statewide, we have the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence. We work with the Pennsylvania Coalition to Advance Respect. And then we're a member organization of the United Way. But number one, without a doubt, it's our Center County community. We wouldn't be able to do the work we do without all of you, without everyone watching, without just everyone here in Center County. Because if the community doesn't believe in the work we do, or they think, oh, I'm sure it's not as big of a deal as it really is, there's no way that we can survive. You know, we survive budget impasses, we survive just trauma, right? Because of the people who believe that the work that we do is valid. So I always want to just talk about CenterSafe endlessly. I won't keep you here endlessly, but I just want to help people feel that thread of connection to CenterSafe and to working toward helping victims and survivors. Next slide. There's always ways to get involved. I always say it's really easy to share our things on social media, share posts. We're always looking for volunteers, always, always, always. We love our volunteers. Volunteers can actually help on our hotline, can help at community events, and that's a big give back to our staff who work really, really hard. And of course, folks can always donate to our cause. Funding, without a doubt, is probably the #1 barrier for any nonprofit in this region. But I will say in particular for us, just navigating different landscapes. Again, this work is incredibly high demand and it's no cost to our clients, but as we know, there is a cost to actually provide those things. So there's always a wish list online, but I am always happy to answer questions, or if people just want to connect with me afterwards, I'm happy to talk more. Next slide. I think that might be it. Yes, and really quick, Saturday night, at 7 p.m. we are having a fundraising concert in honor of our 50th anniversary. It's called In Full Voice. There's no intermission. You will be home early-ish, I promise. 100% of the ticket proceeds benefit CenterSafe and go to our 50th anniversary fund. And then the next slide should be Sexual Assault Awareness Month events. So if you all go on our website, centersafe.org, click on events and Sexual Assault Awareness Month, you'll see all the different events and initiatives that we have during the month, from the concert to Denim Day to more. I think that's it for me. Let's see. Yes. So I hope I didn't talk too long. I would say just play me off with music if you need to. It's fine. But I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have about CenterSafe or about the month itself.
Members of council that have comments or questions for Ms. Pensick?
Just thank you so much, and
Thank you.
I'll help spread the word.
I appreciate it.
Eric?
Hey, the slide on, for the event, should that be the Friedman Auditorium? Or is there also an auditorium called Freeman Auditorium?
So there's a Friedman Auditorium downtown. This is the Freeman Auditorium. It's in the Hub Robeson Center.
I got you, okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure. But I do want to congratulate you on one of the best combinations of PowerPoint and verbal support.
Oh, thank
I've
you.
heard in a while.
I always think I talk too long, so I'm
Oh,
always like,
no.
oh, next slide, next slide.
No, but we listen to people who just read the PowerPoint. And you provided quite a bit of interesting and useful information as you walked us through the PowerPoint.
I appreciate that, thank you.
And not everybody does that. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the wonderful work you do. I get this information at work as well for the work that you do, and I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. They're all looking at you.
I sincerely wish there wasn't a need for your services.
Right.
Me too, but thank you.
But till that day, thank
That's
you for
right.
being there.
Yes.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Jody was a friend.
Yes, yes.
Move to accept CA3.
I had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Adam, did you have your hand raised?
I was just going to ask quickly, what types of things are on your wish list that you mentioned?
Well, outside of funding, I will say items on the wish list, it's things that we might take for granted, right? Think of the things that you use every day. So now imagine if you had to leave really quickly. It could be everything from a toothbrush to toiletries to face cloths to pots and pans. But if you go right on our website, we try to update it monthly. But it could be, you know, notepads, pens, pencils.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I've worked in emergency rooms and I've worked in critical care units, and I was a sexual assault nurse examiner. I was one of the first certified in the county. And I think Rich said it very well. I wish you didn't have to be here tonight, but I'm very grateful you are, because your work is necessary. And I know the dignity that you give back to people when you do the work that you do, and that is so important. And it is really very difficult work. So thank you for coming and sharing it with us tonight, and we really appreciate that. And thanks for the question on the wish list. It's always good to know what people need, so thank
We
you
won't
for
turn away
reminding us that
much,
you're
so
out
I mean,
there.
you come up with an idea and we'll probably take
Thank you
it.
for reminding us that you're out there and you have needs too. So
Yes,
thank you very
absolutely.
much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Of course.
Could you help us out, please?
Now?
Please.
I move to accept and adopt consent agenda item CA3A.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed, say same sign? No? We'd like to present you with this proclamation.
Yeah.
Let's stand with council. Sorry, guys, everybody. Sorry, I'm not.
Do you want us up?
Are you going up front? It's a longer walk tonight.
Alright. Got it.
Thank you so much. There we go, one day. And I do have brochures, so I will leave them in the resource room downstairs. Does that work, or do you want? Okay, I'm gonna bring them over here.
Okay. All right. Next item is reports. We'd like to start with the manager's report, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of quick items here on the manager's update that was in your packet. PC continues to discuss elements of form-based code. It seems to be making some good progress at this point, coming up to their meeting on April 7th. It looks like we'll be talking more about, actually it says transects and the regulating plan here, and actually I think you're going to be talking about special districts first. So, but we're getting toward the transects and the regulating plan. So once that happens and once recommendations are made by the Planning Commission, then that would be coming to council as a combined set of recommendations on form-based code, and we'll begin that process of going through and reviewing that. So great work. Thanks to all that are involved there doing that work. Dawn, I was going to ask if you just wanted to maybe very quickly give an update on the path to campus. I know that there was a meeting earlier this week concerning where we're at with things, and that would be very helpful.
Yep. Well, the archaeological study was completed. They did identify an area that we need to stay out of. Fortunately, we're not going to be there. So it worked out well in that respect. We're working on the alignment around the proposed Gray Star facilities. They're putting in 2 large basins, and we believe we can get around those without too much difficulty. Our next step is to have a meeting with DEP and the Conservation District to just go over what are they going to want to see when we, as far as E&S controls and post-construction stormwater management. Those could be some difficult tasks, but it's moving forward, and so far we've managed to avoid any real hurdles.
Great. So moving on from that, thank you, Don. Moving on from that, Mike, I don't know if there was anything that you wanted to simply capture relative to the renovation work that's the study work.
Yeah, I can touch on it real quick. Kimmel Architecture has been in and met with, online, met with the team here, internal building team. We've done some technical edits to the original concept plan. So they're in the process of finalizing that concept plan. The anticipation next is that we'll probably start to get some 3D renderings of what that may look like in terms of interior to the building, and then we'll start talking about furniture and what those furniture and fixtures will look like here in the building as well. Ultimately moving towards, as we had talked about, here sometime this summer, they'll be in a position to be finalizing those plans and moving us towards bidding of a project here, hopefully by the end of the year.
Great. Thank you, Mike. A couple of other items quickly. We're going to be talking a little bit more this evening about the Shiloh Road Corridor Partnership. I did want to report or mention the fact that within the manager's update, we have the recent article that was published in the Center Daily Times relative to the Happy Valley Casino. That's there, and I do want to give you a newsflash bulletin if you are unaware. The mall was vacated earlier today, closed effectively due to a fire line water break. That happened late this afternoon. Code, because of the reduced pressure in hydrants and the balance of the fire suppression system, code had to have the building vacated. Things do at this point seem to be online for at least a partial reopening. There are a few places within the mall that were actually not impacted that we believe code will give some approvals to open ASAP. And then there are going to be some repairs, and there will be a number of the stores or spaces in the mall that will be impacted, but we're anticipating all that work will be done by mid-morning of tomorrow. So it's clearly an inconvenience, but fortunately we found it, we're able to isolate some of it, and hopefully minimize any kind of impacts to the clients that are out there. And that is, there is one other thing. We had talked, or actually we, as council, I believe, council and the manager received some correspondence relative to concerns about traffic, speed on Brandywine in the vicinity of Fieldstone and the middle school. Right. And as in response to that, we have our speed sentry radar have been posted along Brandywine in that general vicinity, but also comes to pass that we also have an opportunity with the newest round of ARLI grants to identify this Brandywine Fieldstone middle school issue. We're going to be working with our transportation consultant in preparing an ARLI grant that would create raised sidewalks in at least 2 of the existing 3 locations.
Crossings?
For crossings.
Raised crossings.
Raised
Yes.
crossings, yes, raised crossings on Brandywine. Dependent upon the school district reaction, we've talked with them, they're supportive of us pursuing that at this particular point. But essentially, we'll get with them once we have some final design or some idea of what this will be all about. And then it'll ultimately be up to council in terms of whether or not we make that application. But I just wanted to let you know that in addition to kind of the enforcement activities that we're trying to assist with, I think that there is an opportunity here to actually create a permanent fix or potentially permanent fix, at least much improve the situation through the raised crosswalk. So I just wanted to pass that on. That's everything for me.
Any questions, comments on either the manager's report or the casino article? Rich?
Just on the, a couple of points to add to the facility renovations. A couple of things that have already come out is they did a mechanical assessment, which came out fairly positive, other than a lot of the stuff's old. And if we're going to upgrade it, now may be the time and may need to be phased. So just a heads up on that, but no glaring faults or with that and everything. And one of the early things that staff has, I think, coalesced around is we're not going to do high density storage, which would have triggered some structural things. But staff has made some nice tweaks to the design that are going to get us to the next 30 years. So, and then finally on the reports, I would just ask, we were going to do that. the report, thank you, the CDT, that we talked about doing that exact thing. This kind of an analysis and discussions with various peers in these communities. Having read that, did anything in there surprise staff?
No.
Okay. And then the only thing else I would ask, a lot of people don't have access to the CDT anymore. Are we able to add this to our extensive website? Okay.
We can do that.
Okay. That's all I had. Thanks.
Do the speed radars, can they collect data, or do they
Yes.
just? Okay, so we'll have a average speed.
We have a full boat of data available to us.
Good. And
Comprehensive, I should say.
what, it's a township road, right?
Correct.
So we don't really need the school districts.
No, but I do want to coordinate with the
Okay.
school district on that. I mean, this has been a challenge for the district for some period of time, but especially since Brandywine has been open.
No, I just want to make sure that we didn't anticipate any opposition from the school
Right.
district on this, because
We do not.
everything's within our control, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And quite the opposite. And speaking with Randy Brown, he was very supportive of the idea and offered to help in terms of letters of support or things like that we may need.
Which
as
we will
move
need if we're
forward.
going for a grant.
Gretchen?
Yeah, I had two things. One was a question, the Path to Campus archaeological area, what's in the archaeological area, potentially?
They found an old foundation, which may have been the sawmill for the furnace.
Ah, okay. And then just secondly, I'm just going to ditto what Adam just said about the school district being I can guarantee you, absolutely a good partner in this, because this has been a problem for years and years, as you mentioned, and it's all sorts of things have been attempted, but nothing as permanent as this, and this, I mean, not to be dramatic, but this could potentially save lives.
Yeah.
So this is really, really important, and I can tell you, when I was on the school board, we got emails about this constantly, because children were almost getting hit all the time. So this is really great.
Yeah, and I'm going to speak to that too. It's my neighbors. Neighborhood, and they are my neighbors. And I know that there were concerns last year, and this last incident almost did result in a fatality. And the responsiveness, the way the township responded, Mike, and the school district really really help the family in particular that was affected by the incident. And I can speak to the speed on our Brandywine. People are so well behaved, including me. It's easy to get moving on that road, and when those signs are up, you really become aware of how fast you're going. So, you know, I really want to thank staff and thank the school district, because it's really helped. And it's the strategy to consider putting those raised sidewalks in is brilliant. That will make all the difference. I think it will. So, crosswalks. What did I say? Go trails? Anyway, so thank you very much. Next up, we had a couple of meetings. Did Parks Gov meet, Rich?
It did. We continue our work. We're starting to get comments back on the intermunicipal agreement. A couple things to clarify, tweak, everything like that. We look to do that at our April meeting. We did finalize our appendices, and we'll be sending those to the managers for their input, same as we did the municipal agreement. We'll review those and finalize those. We're pushing for an attempt to have some type of presentation at the May General Forum where everybody can hear all the comments and concerns and ask the questions and all that, and hopefully get towards a resolution and get that over across the line. Right after that, we have the bylaws, the authority, and the maintenance agreements for each of the parks with each of the municipalities. So work's not done, but we're continuing to inch forward.
Just a real quick question. We have provided our comments, have we not?
We did. The one thing we asked is a final review on the appendices.
Exactly, okay. And we're still waiting on that.
That's correct. They're coming out to the managers first, and then we'll finalize them in April and distribute and have final discussions hopefully in May.
Thank you.
But the appendices, just as a reference, A is an inventory of all the parks in the region. And that was a lot of work by staff. And it just needs to be reviewed by all the municipal staffs to make sure they're in concurrence. B and C are the matrix that General Forum and the authority have already approved. D is really the one that need a little bit of love, and that's the one that we're going to get out. And then the final item is just a template, a communications template. It's a tool, you know, basically setting the floor of communicating with the municipalities and things like that. So.
Lucy?
Lucy, yeah. Lucy met today. Julian was there. This time it was a joint meeting with the Center Region Planning Agency. So College Township had a rep there. Ray was there as our rep from Planning Commission. So a joint with Center Region Planning Commission. There was only one action item, and since Center Region Planning Commission didn't have a quorum, it was just an action item for us, and that was the request to expand the growth boundary and sewer service area for the ARL expansion. We ran into the same issues that I briefed council on at the last meeting. And that was, at the end of the last meeting, the Lucy Committee had requested Penn State to come back the next meeting and explain in more detail and provide some rationale for why this needed expanded use couldn't be accommodated in vacant or Penn State-owned properties already inside the growth boundary. That was still an issue with several of the members. Penn State did provide some rationale and some reasoning. I would have preferred it to be more robust. However, the discussion did end up narrowing down somewhat the opposition to the growth boundary issue with a couple of the municipal representatives on the Lucy Committee. Really, this is somewhat subjective, because it's really hard if you just gauge this just on data, like available acres. Yes, there's available acreage, but the needs for ARL are somewhat unique, and it really comes down to how much is the center region willing to bend on the underlying rationale for expanding the growth boundary to accommodate somewhat unique circumstances. I was a bit disappointed and somewhat frustrated with the discussion. Hopefully Julian didn't notice. I read some excerpts from Center Region Planning Agency's recommendation as to how this was consistent with the comp plan and how the growth boundary was request was really minimal. But some members just couldn't get around the idea that technically or theoretically the use could still be accommodated within the growth boundary. The example that I gave was, I don't know, 20 years ago, we went through the same thing with Geisinger Gray's Woods. Almost identical issues. Mike was around. He recalls that very laborious this process that we went through. Clearly, Geisinger could have accommodated their needs within the growth boundary, theoretically, space-wise and acreage-wise. But could they have provided the consolidated, efficient services through these, spread out parcels or whatever? Or should Geisinger have been required or requested to buy more property in order to consolidate and stay? So that's really where we got hung up on. The good news is that, like I said, I think as far as reaching some kind of consensus is that the issues have been narrowed down, and Penn State's been asked to provide more specific rationale in the area of security. Why having the additional acreage and being able to consolidate out in Innovation Park meets their security needs that they cannot get elsewhere within the growth boundary. So that was some progress. It was clear that we were not going to get a majority vote to support it and move it on to general forum. So I voted in favor of the motion to table it until the next meeting with the ask that Penn State come back with some more information. By reading the room, it just didn't seem, the votes weren't there to move it to general forum. And even if they were, we need a supermajority, they need a supermajority at general forum. And it didn't seem like that was going to happen at general forum. So I thought it was in the best interest of College Township to delay the discussion so we can get some more information, have more discussion, and maybe possibly move to a consensus that would be more favorable to to the vote that we would need, regionally. So that was it. Little bit better than the last meeting. Moving forward, I would characterize it maybe as baby steps. But honestly, for those of you who are around, the Geisinger Gray's Woods process didn't move any faster than this. And it ran into some bigger issues than this did.
I was going to remind those that didn't happen to recall. There were some very contentious issues based upon the way that request ended up coming to the general forum.
Yeah, I didn't share that part of the story. And I don't want to bring that out at this point, but I think our discussions were very productive. As productive as you could be, given the varying degrees of support that there was in the room.
Well, and it sounds like you're moving towards a better consensus before you take it out of committee and move it to the general forum.
Yes.
So that makes good sense.
Before somebody plays their whole card, but the last thing I'll say is, I did mention that, you know, we have the opportunity to look at Geisinger Gray's Woods in hindsight, 20 years later, and all the angst over the planning, the disregard for sound planning principles and allowing the growth boundary to be expanded, you know, while there was available acreage in the growth boundary. If you had it to do over again, would you do the same thing? But more importantly, does anyone regret that now, seeing, you know, what Geisinger is able to do out there? And I think it just really depends on where you sit, what your answer to that is, but I think that helps people maybe put this in some context. And I will also say that I thought our representative on Center Region Planning Commission, Ray Forziat, did a really nice job of characterizing what we're being asked to do, along with the Ferguson Township Rep Bill Keogh. So we'll see. We don't meet again for a couple months, I think. So.
I had one question quickly of staff to refresh my recollection. We're talking about 62 acres. Is that correct?
Yeah, the total, yes.
Okay. And each individual municipality has 50 EDUs to work with over a 5-year period.
Or 12 acres.
As part of the, or 12 acres.
Right.
As part of the implementation agreement.
Yeah, the DRI light that we've been.
All right, I think that's important, and it may be something that can be.
More context.
There's more context, right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other COG or regional committee meetings? I'll get to CCMPO or the public hearing in a minute, but anybody else have any committee meetings? Do you have an assistant manager's report, a DEIB report?
I do. So a couple, as being the first meeting of the month, a couple things to highlight, specific days, holidays coming up. Today is actually World Autism Acceptance Day. Today also starts between now and the 9th, Passover. And then, of course, coming up here on April 5th is Easter. Some of the months, Ms. Pensick did a great job highlighting Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's also Child Abuse Prevention Month, Autism Awareness Month, Celebrate Diversity Month, Arab American Heritage Month, and Scottish American Heritage Month.
So I had talked with Eric earlier. Eric attended the PennDOT preview for the public hearing on the State College Connector project for elected officials, and I had a conversation with a group of stakeholders about concerns related to the draft environmental impact study. So Eric agreed he would give us an update from that meeting yesterday, and we had also had some comments that were shared with us today from, I believe, the conservation chair of Trout Unlimited. That was shared with me and Adam. I passed those on, and those were actually printed, and they're at your. And the concern is that there will be mitigation money that will come as part of some of the environmental impact work that will need to be done out in the connector project area. And some of our stakeholders in the region would like to see that money stay in the center county area. So that was the topic of interest on some of this correspondence, and so you stayed for the whole meeting the other day.
I did. It was actually Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, I lost track. Did I say yesterday?
You did, but actually you were within 24 hours, which is better than what I would have probably guessed. So, yeah, it was the elected officials briefing of the State College Area, of the draft State College Area Connector Environmental Impact Study. And for those of you, if you want a little bit of context, this is the part of the timeline the project is in. They've already gone through some preliminary design, enough to design the 3 options, and they settled on the one option, and then that allows the environmental impact study to do a deeper dive into the environmental impacts of that particular alignment. To be fair, there were bigger picture environmental impacts, more obvious ones, factored into the choice of the alignment. You know, for example, there's now 17 bridges in there, in that suggested alignment, which in the old days PennDOT wouldn't have done. But a lot of those were put in place to mitigate the environmental impact in some of those areas. And that leads to one of the questions that came up in the meeting. So that's where we're at. The PennDOT, as a courtesy to elected officials, provides a briefing ahead of the public comment period, the public hearing, which is next Tuesday from 4 to 8 at Calvary Church in Bollesburg. It will be a public hearing, a very formal public hearing, you know, one-way communication. You step up to the podium, you provide comments. Those comments then will be factored into the draft environmental impact study, and then it will be edited or adjusted as PennDOT feels appropriate, submitted, and then the next step will be for FTA to provide
Too many acronyms.
matter of record. In other words, basically they approve it. And that allows PennDOT to move forward with final design and right-of-way acquisition. And they expect that those two things will happen in parallel over the next 2 years. And then in 2027, construction could begin, should those go as planned. And they're anticipating a 10-year window for construction. It's a long time. There were several issues brought up at the elected officials. Three questions, I think, that rose to the top. And the first one was part of the design and expands the road from 322 down to Bowl Avenue that goes by Liberty Hill. And with that planned expansion, it kind of eliminates pedestrian access in that corridor. So that was brought to the attention of PennDOT. The second thing was, I mentioned 17 additional bridges, which is great for environmental impact mitigation. However, as the MPO chair, bridge maintenance, you know, that's our responsibility down the road. Now, in theory, you know, those bridges will factor into the formula, and in theory, we'll get some more of the formula-driven money. But needless to say, that's a concern. And then the last question or comment was, given that a 10-year window, is there any possibility that it could be opened in sections as it's finished? And really, that can't be answered until they get into final design and probably even into construction. It wasn't a question that was asked, but a comment that was offered by PennDOT staff was the remaining public comments that they're getting are really mostly from property owners in the area who just want some more specific timeline on the project, and more importantly, how much of their property is PennDOT going to need. So the opposition to the project, there's not that much coming in. It's more angst and anticipation from the property owners who understand that it's going to happen, and they just want to be able to move on. And I think the reason that they're down to that has a lot to do with the extraordinarily deliberate process that PennDOT has followed and the unprecedented level of community engagement that PennDOT has followed. Now, some of that is mandated now. It's different, you know, than it has been in the past. But the responses and the way the PennDOT staff has handled it is not mandated. I've seen firsthand just what they've done and the responsiveness they've shown to the property owners, which I think has mitigated, you know, a lot of the angst and a lot of the concerns outside of the properties that are affected. So, as Susan referenced, the public hearing is an opportunity to provide comment. The question then becomes, do we want to provide comment on behalf of some of the entities that have forwarded comments to us? And if we do, you know, what's the best format? You know, I'm going to attend as the chair of the MPO, even though it's not an MPO project, and probably provide some comment consistent with the written comment that we're going to provide that's going to be centered around the process. You know, expressing appreciation for the deliberate nature of it, the level of communication, and more importantly, the responsiveness that, you know, and encourage them to keep doing that. The comments that we receive, should we forward them, fall right in line with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would be asking them to, you know, take into consideration those comments and be responsive where they feel is appropriate.
And the question becomes, does council want to submit public comment formally as council in support of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, or not the Spring Creek, Clearwater Conservancy, as well as Trout Unlimited at the public hearing next Tuesday? And I think we can do that by consensus and discussion here, rather than as an agenda item and taking a motion. So we have Mr. Stryker's comments, and the primary comments have been about the concern regarding the mitigation money, if there is mitigation money that is that comes of the project. And so rather than move that to a project outside of Center County that PennDOT is earmarked, the request would be that PennDOT consider keeping that money in Center County. And do we want to support that, either through a formal letter that staff could, you know, formal written comments, or as part of public testimony that Eric could give or I could give on Tuesday?
Or both.
We can do both.
I mean, if Eric's going to be there anyway.
Yeah. Just to kick this off, outside of Ford's comments, if we circle back to Clearwater's comments, I would offer, at least from my standpoint, that if we're going to support them, we should support them in the sense that we would ask PennDOT to take a hard look at them, because none of us are subject matter experts, and I sure do not want to pretend to be one by endorsing their comments.
Right. And I think in 2020, College Township Council at the time agreed to be a coordinating agency with PennDOT for communicating with the public. So this is consistent with what we did as a previous council. And so I agree with you in the sense that those comments, those are subject matter expert comments. I can't get to that level, but I do think that these are stakeholders in our community. They're asking to do something to support something in our community, and I think that's a reasonable request, and formally requesting that PennDOT take that under advisement seriously. I think that's reasonable.
I agree.
I agree.
Rich? Great. Would staff then be able to put together a written summary? I can forward the Clearwater comments as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I may have those, but I don't recollect those.
Yeah, I don't know if Clearwater copied you on that. This has all come up in the last 48 hours, so I will forward those to you. But the main request is to keep these, to PennDOT to consider to keep the mitigation money in Center County for projects in the county.
Yes, I mean,
So-
my only question would be relative to the letter to PennDOT on that topic. How in-depth do you prefer that the letter go?
I think we make it clear that we can reference comments from from Clearwater
That we're
and from Trout
supportive
Unlimited,
of
and we're
the
supportive.
okay.
I think so.
Well, no, I maybe be careful
Okay.
here. We encourage PennDOT to look at those and
Okay.
thoroughly vet those, because I don't know that I'm in a position to say I support those comments.
Understood.
That's
You know,
a good point, Eric. That's a good point.
Now, there's places where she asked Jerry to weigh in, that'd be a different story. You know, if staff has the time to weigh in, fine, but other than that,
Okay. I think that's a good point. I think that is all we have for reports. don't think there was anything else. Next up will be the consent agenda. So under the consent agenda, we have CA1A minutes, the approval of March 19, 2026 minutes from our regular meeting. Under CA2 correspondence, we have receipt of correspondence from Jeannie Goggy dated March 21st, 2026 regarding the casino. Email from John Pitterly dated March 21st regarding same. Email from Bob Booz dated March 21st regarding same. Email from Joan Nestler dated March 21st, 2026 regarding same. Email from Peggy Myers dated March 21st regarding same. Email from Andrew Schaefer dated March 21st, 2026 regarding the casino. Email from Mary Jane Stout dated March 22nd, 2026 regarding casino. Email from Nancy Cord Barron dated March 22nd, 2026 regarding the casino. And an email from Stahl Schaefer dated March 26, 2026 regarding an extension for the Pam State College subdivision plan to July 4th, 2026. Under CA-3, we have CA-3A, a proclamation. I take that back. That's not part of the consent agenda now. CA-3B, letter of support for center care grant application. CA-3C, request for support of the 7th annual Juneteenth art exhibition and block party. CA-3D, Mid-State Literacy Council request for support of community spelling bee, and CA-3E, letter from the Community Diversity Group dated March 28, 2026, requesting support for the Community Diversity Conference. Are there any members of council that would like to pull any of the items from the consent agenda at this time? Okay, then I would take a motion.
Pardon me. I would request pulling CA3, C, D, and E, please.
Okay. All right. Then with that, we'll pull those items, and I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda absent those items.
So moved.
Is that a first and a second? Sure. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, then we'll discuss CA3C, D, and E.
First off, just a reminder or a refresher that the items that are in the consent agenda primarily are to receive them. Now, if everyone is in support of providing the requested amount of funds of these various 3 funding requests we've mentioned here, that would be the consent, and that's fine. But some of these have ranges of participation attached to them, and I need to know what council's pleasure is relative to a level of support for these.
Then,
If any.
Or if any, right.
Well,
right.
That was for you.
A do nothing?
well, okay, so then CA3C is a request from the Juneteenth Art Exhibition and Block Party for 2026, and the organization is requesting a $500 donation, I believe. Yes, a $500 township investment to support this 2026 Juneteenth sponsor at the MLK Plaza and on Fraser Street, and that will be taking place on
June 19th.
I think, yeah, it's not June, yeah, it's June 19th.
Good.
Tracy? Any comments? We're going to need to have discussion on this.
I mean, I'm a part of this every year, so.
Okay.
Did we make
I
that?
support that.
Is that?
This will be the first year we've made this donation.
Yeah, we've never made a
We've
donation.
never made the donation.
I would be in support of it just because we do the proclamation, so this would show double support. Also, it's grown from me originally being in the community before I was even on council. It's just like very muted, and now it's become more of where we have outside people coming in and celebrating as well. It's become a bigger production where they kind of shut down the block and bring in artists and different things like that. So it's money well spent is what I'm trying to say.
Rich?
Just to confirm, you had asked if we made that last year, and the confirmation is that we did not
Did
make
not.
any donation.
Not that one.
Did we receive a request?
We didn't.
This is our
This is our first time.
First year.
No.
That's what I meant, I didn't ask it right.
Okay. Gretchen?
I support it, and thank you, Tracy, for filling us in and giving us context.
Absolutely.
Okay. I support it as well, so that's 500. And then CA3D is the Mid-State Literacy Council, request for the community spelling bee, which we have donated to before. I don't know offhand, do you know, Adam, is that $500 donation as well?
I believe in the past, we have done a $500 contribution. We've contributed to this
For years.
sporadically, but when we have, it's been at the lower participation rate, but we have supported it. Ron and Mary Maxwell, College Township residents. Their son Ed Maxwell, still a College Township resident. Mary was both, well, Ron was a professor, but Mary was a teacher as well. And they do this or family does this in their honor. And they were very well thought of in the community.
We've previously made $500 donations in the past. Gretchen?
Is there a reason it was sporadic in the past, or just?
I think it's just, I think COVID intervened. I don't know that there were,
Gotcha.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a-
I support this.
Same.
Okay. And then the last request we have is CA3E, which is from the Community Diversity Group. They are actually doing a biennial conference. They have different levels of sponsorship. They have a sustainability patron at $100 to $499, social justice sponsor $500 to $999, and beyond diversity sponsor. I don't know that we have donated to them in the past. Do we know?
Yes.
At $500?
No, that one has been variable.
Okay.
Initially, I believe this would be the third or fourth year that we were requested to provide some degree of contribution. They did not have the event last year, so it hasn't been continuous.
Right.
But I believe that we had initially started off at 500, and I do believe that there was a year, possibly two, that we did something in excess of that due to the success of that particular event. It was very well done, very well received. If I remember correctly, Eric, I think you have attended a couple of times, and
Well
Mike as
done.
well.
When you, I'm sorry, if I may ask, when you say well done, exactly what made it well done? Like, what was
The topics were appropriate.
Okay.
The presenters were well informed.
Okay.
This was not something that was just pulled together. There was quite a bit of thought put into it in choosing the content. Did you go to? Yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think you've summarized it very well. It's,
Yeah, 'cause I've been to
I think I've done it
concerts-
twice. It's a good conference.
I've been to ones that haven't been. The topics are not well chosen, the speakers are, then they did a really good job.
Well, and Mr. Kassab made the point that they chosen to go to a biennial schedule because they want to produce a high-quality conference, and there was burden on volunteers. I think I would propose that we consider a $1,000 donation if we've done an average 500 each year, and this is now biennial. That seems a reasonable.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I agree.
I support that.
Yeah. Could I add this? This is the last one of these we're doing. I think we would be well served to come up with some kind of matrix criteria. We've talked about the connection for each of these. Penn Stater is in our municipality. It's been hosted here. The Maxwells are residents. I think we could make a fairly simple matrix criteria that, one, justifies the contribution, then maybe helps us determine level based on those contributing factors.
That's a good idea.
And we are getting more, we had talked about
Yeah,
that
we're-
outside, we had talked about that. Yes, we're getting more, we are getting more requests, and nonprofits are seeking more assistance, and how do we make those decisions? So.
There's something to guide us.
I remember us having this conversation last year,
Well,
too.
each decision we make is a precedent on these, so. And those hang around for a long time.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
My
need to
tablet,
receive. Yep.
my tablet is, with all my notes, is now taking a nap. So we're gonna wing it.
Madam Chair, I'll make
Okay.
a motion to receive, approve CA3, C, D, and E.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed, same sign. All right. With that, that motion carries and those donations will be made. Thank you, Adam. And thank
Thank
you for
you.
reminding us how to move through that procedure. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, we are now on to old business. We have 3 items and we also have 1 new business item. We have some pretty ambitious items ahead of us. We've got the OB1, which is the conditional use request, the Legacy Boxing and Combat Academy. And Lindsay, you did a nice job preparing our memo. If you would bring that forward and help us.
Okay, sure thing.
Thank you.
Thanks. So earlier tonight, you heard the public hearing. You heard the owner and the property owner and the owner of Legacy Boxing and Combat Sports Academy discuss what they do on the property and how they want to continue to move forward. They did bring up a lot of topics that the Planning Commission had brought up to them in the past. So I feel that they did a pretty good job at answering some of those questions. Within the memo, we have an overview of the Planning Commission's action and what they discussed. They first discussed the age of customers, the clients, the hours, ADA accessibility, the primary use of the facility, if the use changes, what the potential action would be there, main entrance designation, and adequate lighting. So those were all touched on tonight. Mr. Roth, who was also discussed, speaking tonight, noted that, he is insured and registered with the USA Boxing, and that a lot of the things that he does inside of the gym is, they're required and they're pretty specific to what he can do inside of there. And you all know that we did allow indoor recreation facilities as a conditional use not that long ago, and this is the process that we're following. Within the ordinance, when it was enacted, we came up with 6 conditions or 7 conditions. Staff took a stab at looking through the application and just some information that we heard over the past few months as this has been coming through the process. And we have those written here on the second page of your memo. Evidence of consistency with the Dale Summit redevelopment plan. We did change the ordinance to kind of implement the Dale Summit area plan to allow this type of use in the general industrial zoning district, knowing that it will be a permitted use once the ordinance is enacted there in the Dale Summit. So they did say allowing that use is consistent with the Dale Summit area plan, which we agree. A plan for traffic ingress and egress. They did note a few times tonight and within the application that they don't have any issues with ingress or egress at this time with the Legacy Boxing. A plan and a schedule. In the application, they noted that the Legacy Boxing is typically in the evenings, and he did note that again tonight at the public hearing. Strategy for improvement to existing or lacking infrastructure. They note that it will not adversely affect the logical, effective, and economical extension of public services and facilities throughout College Township. So signage, lighting, pedestrians, and mitigation efforts. Signage is established. Pedestrians and users do have sidewalk access, but there is a sidewalk that's not out in front of along Decibel Road and College Avenue. So then coordinate efforts with improved infrastructure. I know when we first discussed this, the township or the council discussed investing, and if there is an opportunity for updating any of the infrastructure in the area, that could be a bigger discussion as part of this process. And then, of course, any additional safeguards to ensure the general health, safety, and welfare. That might be something that College Township Council might want to consider tonight in regards to the rear entrance lighting and any other mitigation factors that you feel that might be necessary in this case. They did say at the Planning Commission meeting that didn't come up tonight that it is kind of dark in the back. So that would be one suggestion, that we would put in some lighting back there. There's a garage door and then a man door next to it, and a lot of folks do, that was the entrance he was talking about, and it's kind of dark back there. So if council is ready tonight, you can discuss this, and then, as you know, you continued the hearings, you can have that. Again, Mr. Engel will work on preparing the findings of fact and so forth. So I'm here if you have any questions for the rest of the process as we go through. And he did note that, you know, everything he did process-wise is all here. All the neighbors are notified, the property has been posted, so that's all taken care of.
Thank you. So the action item tonight isn't to make a decision on this, but to review those conditions. And then that will give both Mr. Engel and Mr. Glantz an opportunity to put those conditions into written form for us. And then we would consider those, and including those as part of the permit, that we would make a decision on at the future, at the hearing.
Right, and
Okay.
yes, and you do have 45 days to make the decision after the public hearing is closed. So that's, we're sort of, those haven't started yet
Okay.
because that hasn't
We have
happened. Exactly.
The public hearing is still open. Okay.
Right.
All right, well, I'll start with you, Eric.
Okay, you guys have heard me say this before. You know, but it bears mentioning again as we head into this. There's a reason why these aren't allowed uses in the industrial zoning district, because these uses generate after-hour traffic, retail traffic, things that the property owners are not required to mitigate, because most of your industrial uses are daytime and don't have retail traffic, so you don't need streetlights, you don't need sidewalks. So as soon as we start allowing uses that go beyond that, we do two things. You know, unless we can make up for them in the land development plan or the conditional use process, we create potential safety hazards or holes, basically. And as Rich has mentioned many times before, we also compromise the value and the integrity of the existing zoning districts that do allow these uses. You know, so there are places, just like I talked about with Lucy, there are places that ARL could go. You know, there are places that these folks could go that have sidewalk, streetlights, and things that will better accommodate folks after hours and taking the bus there and all that, but they've chosen to ask for the, well, they can't have it both ways, so we have to try to meet in the middle, and I think that's the exercise we're trying to do. So the only things that I would add to that is, for example, if they were to locate in one of these areas where it's already an allowed use, what would they have out there, or what would be required in that zoning district that they don't have here? You know, probably sidewalks, probably lighting, the kinds of things that would accommodate after-hour visitors, you know, at night when it's dark, people walking there, people taking the bus, those kinds of things. And those are the kinds of things I think we should be looking at. And then secondly, my last comment is, and I've said this before, if we're going to allow this in there, the impacts extend beyond the property. So if the township decides that we want to start allowing non-industrial uses in an industrially zoned area, which isn't necessarily a bad idea, given that nobody's knocking the door down to fill up those industrial uses, then we need to be prepared to fill those gaps, because we cannot, through the land development plan process, expect to get that stuff done through the conditional use. I don't think those would be reasonable. I don't think we can ask them to put streetlights all the way up decibels so that people can safely walk there at night. So to the extent that we're prepared, and you have that identified as one of the last points. So I, you know, that would be my comment before the next meeting. Is there anything that stands out to staff that they would be required to have in place? Now, I'm not talking about code permits. I'm talking about if they presented a land development plan for a boxing academy, you know, in a zoning district where it was already allowed and they didn't need conditional use, what would they be required to do? And I think we should know what that is and decide whether that's a reasonable request or not. And then lastly, to the greatest extent possible, our conditional use requests for indoor recreation facilities, is that what we're
Yep.
calling this? Our goal should be that those requests should be similar, no matter whether it's a boxing academy or a gymnastics academy or whatever. I wouldn't get hung up too much on specifically whether they're hitting each other inside that building or whether they're jumping on trampolines or whatever, because it's going to generate the same impact. So while I appreciate hearing that, you know, we should try to set the conditions for indoor recreation facility, you know, regardless of what it is. And then we don't have, theoretically, we shouldn't have to go through this if she changes tenants to a gymnastics academy.
Right.
That-
So,
That's it.
okay. I would say that, you know, going through, so what I heard is that if it were coming in as a land development plan, if it weren't a conditional use, then what types of elements would be required on the property from those landscaping, sidewalks, streetlights?
As a starting
all of those
point
things.
for us considering what is reasonable, because I don't think it's a big stretch to say, if you were going in this part of the township, this is what would be required. I'm not saying that has to be our end ask, but I think it's an important exercise to go through as we develop what is being as we develop reasonable conditions.
Okay. I think I got that.
And
Thank
that's
you.
just my opinion.
Mark?
One thing I'd like to make sure council, when you discuss this in depth, realize a couple things. Number one, this property does not abut any street other than College Avenue. That's an important thing to know. It's serviced by its own private driveway. And this was similar to the issue with the Summit Industrial Park. There is that railroad area where if you chose you wanted a sidewalk to go partway towards College Avenue, there's those problems with the railroad crossing and the railroad area that is not part of this property. Just wanted to make sure council was aware of that. The only public street abutting this property is College Avenue.
And therefore, my comments about the township having to be willing to step up to fill potential gaps that can't be reasonably requested from the property owner. And I will mention that in their comments, they talk about how someone can walk up Decibel Road and then walk through the parking lot of the old Comcast building to get to their property.
Yeah.
Well, that ends at the parking lot, and then there's a decently steep grassy slope that someone would have to navigate to get down. So those are if this was a land development plan, we would be asking for, you know, PED connections between the adjacent sites, and that's why I asked her tonight if they happen to own that site, because.
Okay. Great.
Again, that's all I have.
Thank you, though. Those are good comments, thank you.
I don't know if they are, but.
Tracy, any comments?
Well, I guess I understand where Eric is coming from and the direction he wants us to kind of go into. But I guess the conditional use, right? Wouldn't there be requests in lieu of if it was a land? You know, we have a lot of in lieu ofs that I've been a part of, and we've given permission. So to me, it's a little bit similar to like in lieu of.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify that and understand that a little bit better, because I can understand the concern, because there's certain requirements not present in the request because of its where they're asking it to be a conditional use and a non-conditional use. But we also do have like the fee in lieu of, and like, I already just explained it, I don't want to confuse it, so, yeah, there we go.
Okay.
That's my comment or thought behind, like, what's the difference?
So I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
Okay. And then staff can jump in and correct me as appropriate, as is usually the case. But essentially, in a land development plan, typically there are stated requirements within our land development ordinance about things that have to be done. And, as you know, you've been part of some of these conversations. We've adopted a matrix that we now utilize when considering, for example, sidewalks.
Yeah.
And we provide a ranking of whether or not a particular property, due to its site characteristics, difficulty of developing it, those types of things, we end up assigning a rating, and depending upon what that rating is, kind of provides a determination as to whether or not sidewalks are needed or not needed. And that kind of a situation, especially where sidewalks are identified to be needed, there is consideration available, and it's at council's option to, if it's offered by the developer, a fee in lieu, council has the ability to accept a fee in lieu where a sidewalk is otherwise required. However, council's not obligated to do that.
Right.
And the applicant, in that case, would be required to build a sidewalk. I believe that there's a distinction here, given A, the fact that it's a conditional use, but primarily because this is, and for want of a better term, I'm going to call it an adaptive reuse of an existing facility that was never designed or intended, as Eric has stated, to be a more commercial type of a facility. And so I think it becomes an open question for council to determine the extent to which you would hold a conditional use request, in this particular case, in an adaptive reuse type situation, to a similar standard as you would a new land development plan. And that's for council to decide. But in terms of your question, I think that I may have, did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay,
You did.
all right.
Yeah, and I think it's a question and a comment, like, do we approach this in a similar manner when it comes to conditions? I know that land development is a little more rigid and in its request and requirements, but is there some level of like rigidity, the other word that's not coming out right now? Is there any level of that we can implement here to where it can not require someone who is obviously benefiting the community in a positive way? It's concerns because of the, combat word on there, and I can understand that, but also living in New York and other places, that's not too scary for me, the wording. But is there an opportunity here to rethink this and put some parameters around it where we have existing spaces that could potentially, like, it's benefiting them, it's benefiting our community. I love the story about the student that was having some problems, and here this was a solution to some anger issues that they had. This was an outlet. Is there some things that we can put in place? Is this an opportunity for us to rethink some things?
There's another, if I may, there's another aspect to this, and that is that this area, the specific area, is part of the Dale Summit redevelopment plan area. And in theory, one of the reasons why this even is before council as a conditional use is because we're in the process of developing form-based code for implementation in this area in general. And as we have discussed in broad terms with council, essentially, once the form-based code ordinance is put in place, the distinctions that presently exist between industrial, commercial, and even residential in the Dale Summit area will be substantially blurred. And in fact, they'll be blended. So that once that ordinance is in place, someone would be able to utilize that same space for industrial, for commercial, like a gym or recreation area, or even for housing.
Right.
So we're in a transitional moment when this request is coming forward. As Mark will tell you, we had what type of an agreement?
We had a tolling agreement.
A tolling agreement, which was essentially intended to provide some additional time, because the thought at that particular juncture was that the form-based code would be in place, and once that was in place, this use would be allowed.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, if I may, it sounds like you have a condition that you would like staff to put in as one of the things that we would consider as part of the conditions, and that is some sort of fee in lieu in terms of, is that something you could add, and that could be put together by Mr. Engel and Lewis?
A fee in lieu of, I guess I still have some questions, like.
Not necessarily a fee in lieu, but I was looking at it as like fee in lieu, like we don't have to assess a fee, but I was thinking of it like with the land development process. There's certain restrictions that we have to do, and then there's certain thresholds that can kick in where they can have a fee in lieu of meeting that condition, right?
So if someone,
no, go ahead, Lynn.
So if, we say, if you can't provide this, you would provide this in lieu of something else. So if you can't provide the lighting, then maybe work to make that little,
safer,
cut down that slope so you can access, make a better access.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Am I kind of,
No, you got it.
Okay.
So the one thing I would ask is if whoever, as we're making comments, there are conditions that have already been listed, and so if you agree with the comments, just make that known. If you want to change those comments or those conditions, or add conditions. So it sounds like you've added some conditions, Eric, you have. Rich?
Okay. All right. So the other thing I would add, kind of as a follow-on to Eric's, not only in looking at if that use was used somewhere else in a zoning district that is currently allowed, but looking at it also in the lens of our form-based code. Is there any requirements? I mean, that's really why we're considering this, is because of that pending and everything. So look at with that lens as well.
What we've done so far, at least to this point with uses, is that, this is a permitted use by right in the proposed listing of uses for the form-based code. So if we, would we set a precedent with this moving forward with those different uses in, are we gonna add conditions to this and then in like 6 or 8 months, 5 months, next month, it could be a permitted use by right. So, that's kind of where I'm struggling right now.
I think that just to reframe, the use isn't, I think the use is going to be allowed under form-based codes. I don't have any questions about that. It actually helps the process to a degree in the discussion. But there are requirements under the form-based code of how it would go in.
Right.
And not if it or whatever.
They would be required to put in certain parkland.
Correct.
And different things like that we've already established within the code. So maybe combining what you're saying with what Eric's saying.
I support that, and what I want to make clear is I offer that as a starting point for discussion, not the end, necessarily the ending point, as a appropriate vetting process as we move through it. We may turn out that we don't need to ask for anything else.
Right.
But Rich I think, has a better idea, is reconcile it against form-based code, maybe instead of or in addition to.
Okay, so if we bring those forward and say, these are the types of things that would be required if this was coming under a form-based code
Yeah,
application.
Because it's allowed, used by right, but they can't just go in without meeting those conditions.
Got it.
And I would say both, because what if form-based code never
happens, yeah, good
you know,
point.
unfortunately, you know.
Take that out the air.
That's right.
Or it doesn't happen before the next request comes in.
Yeah.
And we've
Okay.
already set up.
Yeah, I think that cleared up some things for me. I think we can.
I'm not sure what the time clock is on this current tolling agreement,
September.
but I'm almost wondering if we should check with our solicitor if we could somehow extend, if we're running towards the deadline, extend that tolling agreement so we don't have the conflicts with form-based code, because I firmly believe that we are very close. We're within the next month or two of presenting this to council. I mean, we are that close now that, again, it would, as we was discussed, it might conflict with the form-based code if we would impose conditions now that 6 months from now may be null and void.
There are a couple of things on that. I mean, this is running very close in parallel. This request is running very close in parallel to the time when PC's recommendation is going to be brought forward to council in total. There will be a significant amount of council work over a significant number of months in order to have the ordinance prepared to be able to go to a public hearing and ultimately adopt that. Not to mention the fact that council during the entire form-based code conversation has since made these recreational uses a conditional use, specifically for the purpose of addressing these kinds of situations that occur prior to the adoption of the ordinance. So I think you're not wrong, but I think in this case, we do need to focus on what's before us and address those issues, and that would be subject to the conditional use process.
Right. So take a look at what our current subdivision land development ordinance looks like and what we require. Take a look at what form-based code is going to require. Get those gathered together to present to council so you can then determine, are we going to pick and choose what we do at this point?
Right.
Yeah. I think I got it. But,
Anything else, Rich? Thank you.
Are you looking at me? Couldn't tell.
I am.
If it was Adam or...
No, I'm looking at you, Gretchen.
Okay, so, I guess one question I have is, to include everything you just said, Lindsay, so you've mentioned landscaping, a certain percentage of parkland, pedestrian connections. Are there other things, or is it too much to talk about right now?
some other things under land development, let's see, sidewalks, so pedestrians, trees, landscaping.
Parking.
Traffic, parking.
Stormwater, I mean, we got all kinds of
Yeah.
under traditional land development
I
plans.
have a question. This is an existing structure and this is infill. So we're not working from a land development plan from scratch where we have a piece of land and then we're developing onto that with stormwater management and the other amenities. It seems like there's a sweet spot between holding something to a land development plan where we would be starting from scratch versus we have an existing structure. I see some staff heads nodding. Is there some way to get to that that brings this all in? And then are we pointing to form-based code, or are we pointing to the saldo? How do we clarify that?
Right. Well, typically, if this came in as a permit right now, it would just be a change of use.
Right.
There would be no land development required.
Okay.
Also, if, how was I going with that? So yeah, it would be a change of use. If it would.
If that was an allowed use in the zoning district.
Yeah.
Right.
If it
That's
were
an
a
important
permitted use by
distinction.
right, yeah.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
And because,
So
because it's not allowed by right, we're making the conditions now. And so are we making the conditions based on a brand-new land development plan, or how are we?
Right. Well, if there is a section in the code that if you are doing adaptive reuse, that you get some relief on stormwater, on parking, and things
Okay.
like that. So, you know, that kind of can take us in the step in the right direction if we do try to implement or, you know, administer what is currently in the draft code as a start. I mean, if the whole point of this was to, you know, ease us into the form base by allowing this use just to test it out, see how it would work, then I think a lot of, you know, using what we're proposing would be a good test, beneficial test.
Okay, so the reason I asked that
I
question.
hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. You
Okay.
did. Yeah, the reason I asked it is because, I guess I'm looking at it more from a community perspective, and you all are looking at it like with these really technical, you know, and I'm looking at it as like people who live here. And I think for people who live here, making it nicer, which is a simple way of saying what Eric was talking about, is a really good thing. And I think that the people who elected us to be here would support that and want that. And I think that's the whole point of why you all started Dale Summit, you know, the form-based code, et cetera, et cetera. And then from the CTIDA meeting with Carrie et al., you know, like there's the grant program exactly for this, right? And it abuts to College Ave, is what you were telling us. So this, I mean, it just seems and feels like everything that we want to be doing and that the community is telling us that they want us to be doing. And so, yes, absolutely, because every single time that we make decisions to forego making things a little bit, even low-hanging fruit like landscaping, that has a direct impact on our community. And we know that our community wants it different, which is why you all have been doing this for years. So I don't know why we wouldn't, you know, do this. And in terms of, I guess I just have one technical question, which is, you know, the idea of this is all happening at the same time, but it will be a while because of all of the procedures that have to happen before we get form-based code. I guess, are you suggesting that this is a good practice to show how form-based code could end up working and being having a positive effect on the community? And so you're not recommending, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm asking you this question, that we wait until form-based code is here and then do this, that there's actually reasons for speeding it up even though we don't have it yet?
I think
to practice.
Right. I think it would be a good practice, honestly. Put it in place, come up with the listing, and then Eric, going back to what you've been saying, if these things that we say, like, okay, add 5 street trees and 4, you know, lights. If some of those are reasonable, then we could maybe put them in the findings of fact and ask them to do that. But if council determines that maybe they aren't reasonable, then maybe that's one of the things that the township itself thinks of investing. But we don't know what those would be until we come up with the actual list of what the form base requires, what the subdivision and land development requires. I think it'd be a fun exercise.
And if I
Fun
can-
is good.
If I can add to that, and I think you framed it very well, Lindsay, and I appreciate the question. One of the questions we need to ask kind of outside of the conditional use process, this is the snapshot in time. This is where we're at right now. They fall under conditional use, and that's the process that you're utilizing. Form-based muddies this conversation a little bit, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise to go through because this is the first one through the door, even before we've gotten to form-based. But what is this going to look like when we do have form-based out here and you're trying to retrofit an entire district, which I think is what Eric was getting at. You have a historically industrial district that had its own set of requirements. We're blowing the door open in terms of the uses that are available there. What are those expectations that come with this as you start retrofitting and filling in buildings with uses that haven't historically been there? This is a case study for that. While I don't know that it's fair to put them through that, specifically because we haven't reached form-based, at some point we're going to do this again, and we're going to do it under form-based. And what's going to be required of those individuals at that time through form-based? And is there a mechanism in form-based, and this is a question that council needs to consider as you're going through that, is there a mechanism in form-based that allows retrofitting in districts, properties in districts? So, Eric, I think you've hit on an important thing. One of the, and in my mind, it's what do we do under this process for conditional use? And I slid a note over to Lindsay at one point. Have we run this through the matrix to see how it scores for sidewalks? There's not sidewalks around there, but it might score okay, or it might score where it's a waiver or a fee in lieu type scenario. But I think there's kind of two parallel tracks at this moment. What are we going to do here, and how does that inform what we do with form-based in the future? Because chances are we're not going to bulldoze this district and start over.
Right.
People are going to be retrofitting buildings
Right.
and those kind of things. And to your point, Gretchen, as they're doing that, what are those requirements that are going to be entailed with trying to make it a more cohesive community? So I think it's absolutely a fascinating case study because it's, they're ahead of the process in terms of form-based code, but these are questions we're going to have to be asking as we start seeing this revitalization of Dale Summit.
I just have two more things. One is, but that's such the exciting part, right? The retrofitting, this is actually really exciting because this is the first, sort of guinea pig, for lack of a better term, but I just hope that it's realized how exciting this is because this is the beginning of the greatness that will occur. And it's all of your work that have been doing this for years that is making this even conversation able to happen. But it's very, very exciting. And then I just had a technical question. So with what you're talking about doing with this particular case, before we have form-based code, can we require things or only request?
We can require reasonable conditions. They have to be reasonable, which isn't defined anywhere.
That is subjective.
Yes, very. So we just put them together and I guess run them past our solicitor, their attorney, throw it out there to them and see. But this group will first have have a first opportunity to review that stuff before we put it out to them.
And I think it's important
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's important to ultimately say that we will make requests, and there may be landowners that say, we don't want to do this, and we withdraw our request for the conditional use permit. These, we don't consider, we may require them, but they may not be reasonable. So it's a give and take process. So I think we put out what we want to request, and then that's what we do with the developer. I don't have anything to add. I think the points that have been made. Do you have enough information to put those comments together with the solicitors and incorporate all of that?
Yeah, I think
Great.
between us
Good.
all, we have enough notes to looking at Katie. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, then on to our next item, which is OB2. This is the Penn State signage ordinance amendment, and our action item tonight, we are being asked to consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 170 signs. And we're looking at regulations for signs at stadiums, arenas, and event centers. And this is in response to Penn State's request from last summer with regard to signage on the exterior of Beaver Stadium. So tonight, in terms of action, we can finalize the conditions of the ordinance and set a public hearing, or we can continue to work with staff and provide direction on the amendments to the ordinance. Lindsay, you're going to present a memo for us again?
Yes, and I'll try to move quickly. Okay, so per the instructions of council, we met with the experts regarding lighting. And he, Jonathan Walker, gave us 2 approaches. And that's really what's the memo is about tonight. So although council, the 2, well, so, okay, let me start over. So 2 approaches. One was really to fix the sign, amend the sign ordinance now to accommodate the request. The second approach gets deeper into lighting, specifically outside of signage, gets to illumination standards. Council saw the benefits in both of those approaches, of course, but decided to do it through a phased approach, which is to change the sign ordinance now with some hints of the dark sky principles in there for dark skies. And so we incorporated some of their recommendations. But we thought that it was important to go back and talk about what was discussed prior to this evening that really didn't make it into the ordinance, so we need more feedback from council on that. So this is what we've put forth for you. Height of illuminated signs is a big topic. So right now, freestanding signs can be 15 feet in height. So any sign that's just freestanding can be 15 feet in height. Any building mounted sign, so anything on the side of a building, can go up to the top of the building. So that's how our sign ordinance exists right now. In consideration of the sign and heights on our building, we did consider the lighting principles, and that second principle is direct light only where it is needed. So moving forward, those considerations, defining a height limit such as 25 feet, that would allow the signage to still be at a good human scale. We could direct it, towards the humans that are watching and that are to be watching the signs. And then, it could potentially reduce some of that pollution in the air depending on how high the sign is on the outside of the stadium. So with that, we put forth some ordinance language that would allow illuminated signs related to stadiums, arenas, and event centers that are permitted to increase in total sign area due to the occupancy not to be placed higher than 25 feet on a building. And this is where it gets a little bit difficult because we would only be regulating the signage if it gets that bonus. So if the sign can be bigger, it can only go 25 feet. But if they just don't do if they don't go over the base allowance, then it can go higher than permitted. So that's one element that we wanted to bring up. The second is the cap. The draft ordinance includes a 150% cap on total allowable signage for large-scale venues. No determination was really made on this cap, so we wanted to bring it up again. The intent of the cap is to allow the increased signage better proportional to the building size itself and tie that increase to the gross floor area and the fixed seating capacity. The cap at the current time would only apply to the largest venue, so this really is only applying right now as we stand to Beaver Stadium. We do have some examples here. For example, with the 150% cap, Beaver Stadium could have up to 2,100 square feet of total signage. Without the cap, it goes to 3,000. And it's still capped because of the square footage, because all of our signage area is based on square footage. Some options for consideration is to maintain the cap, adjust it, increase or decrease, or remove it. Which you'll see in the request from Penn State. That's one of their requests. So then the other reminder is just the principles of the responsible outdoor lighting, which we go through. Because we're talking about an ordinance tonight, some of the additions to the ordinance are definitions. We define, per the Jonathan Walker, we define event a little bit better. We define nighttime hours, and we also include the 5 principles, just to get those into our sign ordinance. And then we also differentiate between an event and a non-event when it comes to operations. So that's really going through the memo. We get to the next steps in the process. As you know, the Planning Commission did see this through a remand to council back in the fall. Their motion added, included some information that we did include into the ordinance language regarding the sign percentage of the base and just a little bit of an update of the definition of stadium. So our next steps would be for the CRPC to review this, hold a public hearing and adopt. But one other thing that we'd like to request is just a little bit more public engagement opportunities. And so we want to put this out on our social media to just make sure that everyone else is more aware of, what we're doing here. So you would have the opportunity tonight to move forward with a public hearing, or we can further discuss what is going to go into the ordinance, but it's here for your review.
Thank you, Lindsay. Before we start, I want to ask if any members of the public have any comments. If you wanted to step to the podium, sir, introduce you by your name and also where you live, we'd accept a brief comment.
Thank you so much. My name is Joe Geikis. I live in the borough. I work at Penn State, teaching professor of biobehavioral health, and I also lead a project called Bird Safe Penn State, where we've documented over 1,000 bird window collisions on the University Park campus. I'm interested both in my professional life on the factors in our environment that impact the health of human beings, including things like sleep, and also in my personal life. I've been a bird watcher since I was a kid. I've been interested in conservation-related activities, and I've been enthusiastic about the topic of bringing nature into our lived environment, that conservation work is not just about protecting the wilderness, but it's about making healthy environments for us to live that are not only healthy for human beings, but for the ecosystem that we're part of, our cousins, the wildlife. And so I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and appreciate that you guys are considering dark sky principles, not only for the benefits of the skies, but for those of us who live on the ground. I've seen situations where foggy nights like tonight, bright lights in football season and fall migration. We're in one of the most spectacular flyways with the gigantic amount of forest that we have in Canada. We have huge numbers of birds that migrate at night through our area, and when there's a big glow around Beaver Stadium, it's one of the spectacular concentration points of birds. I don't know if you know all the oak trees that are in the middle of the big parking lots around Beaver Stadium, but some mornings it is just flooded with birds. And that's exciting for bird watchers. We go there and we just look around in the bare little bits of vegetation and see just huge numbers of birds. Some of the largest counts of warblers and thrushes in our general region have been at Beaver Stadium, but also the tragic moments standing beside some of the big windows at the stadium, seeing just flocks of birds flying, hitting, dying, having seizures in your hand. So the spectacle of window collisions is worth considering, and just thank you for your time, and appreciate letting me have the floor to say so.
Thank you, and thank you for waiting patiently while we asked you to do that. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. We also have written comments from a member of the public, Julian Avery, that were added tonight at our tables. And we have also in our packet a letter from Julia Morales, who is on Zoom right now, and I Julian, do you have anything you'd like to share before we start to discuss?
No, I don't really have anything to add. Happy to answer any questions or add insight to anything that comes up this evening, but no, nothing to add at the moment.
Okay, thank you. All right. So our action item, to go back to this, we have several items to cover in terms of looking at the amendment to the ordinance. And again, if we're able to work through that tonight and come to agreements on sending this back to staff, we can set the public hearing, or else if we have questions and we need to move this to another meeting, that's also an option. So with that, I'll open up and I'll ask Rich if you'd like to open us up with your comments.
Sure, I can try.
That would be appreciated.
I'll just break it down. It appears we have the height and the cap.
Right.
Okay. So for the height, could you provide us with maybe a point of reference? I'll call it the bat signal. What height is that at?
Oh, hold on.
I can get you somewhat close to those heights.
Yeah, we just got that information this afternoon.
They are on the backs of the video boards.
Yes.
Okay, so the north video board, the top of the north video board is approximately 171 feet from ground level. The south video board, approximately 202 feet from ground level. That's getting us close, so you know they're on the backs of the video boards.
Yep.
Yeah.
If that's of any help.
Very much. Thank you.
And we also know the general height of the stadium, do we not?
Yeah, it goes
Yes.
from...
Yes, the roof of the east suites is approximately 161 feet. And the top of the, let's see, currently the top of the west side light structures are 195 feet. That's the best we could get put together from what we could gather.
That's great. That was great. Now I'm really going to get you, maybe. The new hospital, 10-story, roughly 80 to 100, figuring an 8 to 10 foot story, 10-story. So just putting it in perspective, the hospital would be, again, 100 some feet.
I would say the hospital use would probably anticipate 12 to 14 feet per story, because those are not 8-foot ceilings.
So 150.
And your rungs between floors
Sure.
for electrical, mechanical.
It's up there. It's above 25 feet.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I mean, the whole reason we're looking at this is because this stuff is different, and it's really different and everything. So with the cap, I'm comfortable. I'm not comfortable at the 25 for these venues, if that's what we're being asked to consider. It's just out of scale. So I guess if my options is cap or 25 feet or no feet, then I guess I'm looking at it. I was looking more if, as it gets above a certain height, it's limited in lumen.
I guess what this, and Lindsay and I discussed this earlier, we may have to refine this to make it a little clearer. What this essentially, the idea is Penn State is allowed X square feet of signage on that stadium based on square footage. That signage can go anywhere they want, like anyone can do anywhere else within College Township. Once they start accumulating the bonus sign area, that is where we will limit heights only for the bonus. They still have their base, so Penn State could use their...
Okay. That
evens
it needs
out,
tweaked a
so-
little bit. It's not real clear that way.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not keeping everything down.
Got
Their
it.
base allowance can go wherever they want, like anyone in the township could do. It's when you get the bonus is when we will be slapping or
Got it.
enforcing.
I was coming at it a different way
X percent needs to be below that height. You're limited above, and that's kind of what you're saying, just in a different way. Okay, that works.
Yes, and like I said, we talked about this middle of the afternoon.
Yep.
And we feel like, we really need to find a way to
Communicate that piece. Yeah.
communicate it better, but hopefully
Yep.
that
Yep.
explains and you understand what
Yep.
these
If we can get the language to match
Our
that
intention is
Yep.
to say that.
Yep. And then as far as the cap, I guess the question would be, where do they sit currently as far as the total square footage?
Okay. So I think the numbers Lindsay gave you came off of what we have them as their current sign totals, not what their allowable is. Currently, we have them at 855 square feet.
Okay.
Because the line heads have taken out, and I believe I brought this up at the prior meeting. Up until about a year ago, Penn State did not have, there was no such thing as a street address. Penn State, everything was addressed by building.
Okay.
So the Lubert building, the Rich Frank building, nothing had physical addresses. I began not charging, if you have the Lubert building, that's your address. I wasn't counting that as a sign. That is no, I interpreted that. So some of these things where it says Beaver Stadium, I'm not counting that, Beaver Stadium.
Okay.
That is their address. So there's definitely more than 855 square feet of signage there, but there are some of these is, I'm treating that like everything else on campus is, that is being treated as the address.
Do you see any potential change to that? Should we move forward with this? Would you look at that differently, interpret that differently?
I would like to stay consistent with what I've been doing across all the UPD since I came here. But currently, under the gross floor area, and that is what is of the stadium, they are entitled to 996 square feet of signage. Actually, 995.833333. So 996 square feet of signage they are entitled to with no bonus. I crunched some other numbers if you wanted to know where it would end up going should we increase. So if you give them 100% bonus and cap it at 100% bonus, they could have 1,992 square feet. If you capped it at the 150%, they could have 2,490. 200%, they would have 2,988. The way the stadium is now, if there is no cap, their maximum signage would be approximately 3,083. So you're looking at, if you're looking at 200%, then you might as well make no cap because.
Yeah, there's not much difference.
On that facility?
Yeah.
And assuming there would never be one larger?
Yeah, pretty safe, yeah.
Yeah, Beaver Stadium is
unique,
an anomaly.
Yeah.
If you take Heinz Field or AccuSure Stadium now in Pittsburgh, I believe their seating is like 64,000. So Penn State, Beaver Stadium is something that is only rivaled one other place in this country per seating capacity. And most places hover around that 60, 70,000 range. So the chances of another Beaver Stadium here, I'm not going to say that it'll never happen.
I was going to say, never say never.
Yes.
So, at any rate, I see Penn State's request. At that level, I think we're splitting hairs. I'm comfortable without the cap or at a 200% cap. My extrapolation puts that roughly at around 2,800 square feet, but you may have calculated it in a different fashion. But it seems to have met the ask, which I don't personally have an issue with. I have more of an issue of the intensity above a certain height than I have of the total square footage. That's all I have.
Tracy?
I don't have any comments.
I agree with what Rich said. But let's make it clear, when you say bonus, it's really not a bonus. We're the ones who have said, beyond this, you're not going to get the same ratio of signage. I mean, if we didn't put that in there, you know, they'd qualify for a lot more square footage than 1,000 or 2,000. We've just said, once you reach a certain point, you're not going to get a 1-to-1 ratio of seats to signs. So for that reason, I'm fine with the 200 or 200% or 3,000. And like Rich, my concern or my focus is the height of the illuminated signs and the brightness. So you guys know I can see the stadium from my backyard 365 days a year. So I got an opinion from someone who lives with me before I walked out the door tonight on where I stood on this. So that's reflected in my comments. But I think it's unreasonable. You know, I do want to say this, as long as those field lights are on, I got to think that's going to be the issue we're hearing with the birds. I can't imagine that illuminated signs at 20 or 25 feet above ground level is going to move the needle much, as long as those field lights are lighting up the sky for, 100 miles while the game's going on. And those lights stay on well after the game's over. So I don't know that we can address that issue. I don't know how much we can do about that with what we're talking about. Right. Except maybe to keep the height down. But I think about, illuminated signs at 25 feet, and then I look at the stadium lit up like,
And that kind of rolls back to our discussion several meetings ago too, that we definitely have a need to revamp our lighting ordinance. That, and I believe that is the problem, and I really, I firmly believe as soon as we're done with form-based code, that's probably going to be the next thing we jump into. Because it makes a lot of sense.
But we're talking about the signs right now.
Yes. You were talking about all the field lights, and that's.
So we need to deal with that
at a later date.
Under the lighting ordinance, because, the comment's relevant, and I sympathize and support the comment, but I don't know what we can do here with signs to address
In this context, I think you're right. There's nothing that you're doing to address the field lighting. That's not what's at hand. We're talking about the potential of illuminated signs, the extent of illumination on a stadium or other type of a venue that meets that definition.
And then the last thing I had was just a question. Did the PC not weigh in on these? It seems like normally we would get some recommendation on.
The PC recommended a 150% cap.
Okay, so that is the PC's recommendation?
Yeah, the 150.
All right, I didn't read that right then, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the PC recommended we slightly change the definition of stadium to say and or other live performance gatherings, and then they said allowable signage may be increased 10% for each 5,000 persons, not to exceed 150% of the base sign allowance.
Okay, then my only response is, or my only difference with that is I would support 200% or no cap. I don't, really, it's a stadium. I don't know.
I will say in all fairness, PC was all over the board, kind of like you are, between, do we do 200, do we have no cap? PC was everywhere, anywhere from 100 to no cap, and everything in between, and it kept bouncing back and forth, and that was kind of it was not a unanimous, it was it was all over the board with them, and that's where they
Landed.
yes, compromised.
No, I was just going to say that the other items create a functional cap. You know, so that's why I don't have a problem with it.
I wanted to hear, Susan, your comments before I give mine. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I usually wait till the end, but yes.
I know.
So I'm going to be really transparent. I am now confused. You know, I've heard bonus, I've heard cap, I've heard words used differently tonight. So if you could walk me back through the formula, how we get to the base. I know that we increase by a certain percent for every 5,000 seats. We have 106,000 seats. It's the 4th largest event venue in the world, so there's a lot of seats up there. How is this calculation made, and how does that cap, or is the cap the bonus? That's the other question.
Okay, so for starters, the way we determine signs, allowable sign area. Okay, anywhere up to 4,500 square feet, gross floor, everything is reference gross floor area. Anywhere up to 4,500 square feet, you can have 1 square foot of signage per 30 square feet gross floor area. From 4,501 to 30,000 square feet, you get your 150 square feet for up to your 4,500. And then that next tier, the 4,500 to 30,000, that formula then reverts to 1 square foot of signage per 300 square feet of gross floor area.
Could you go back and say that again, Mark? The way, I'm sorry, I'm just struggling to track you.
Up to 4,500 square feet, you can have 1 square foot of signage per 30 square feet of gross floor area.
Okay.
So if you had so your 4,500 square feet, it maxes at 150 square feet.
Right.
And then if your building is more than 4,500 square feet, then you start from 4,501 up to 30,000. You get the 150 that you would have gotten to start, and that graduates, and then the formula changes to 1 foot of signage per 300 square feet.
Okay.
It goes from 1 to 30, it goes to 1 to 300. And then once you get up to beyond 30,000 square foot gross floor area, throughout infinity, it is 1 square foot per 3,000. And that's how we get to these numbers.
Simple. So simple. Okay. And so,
My comment was, I
just a minute.
thought bonus was a bad term because we're actually
Understood.
restricting the number when you get to it. We're not giving you more.
Well, so right now, Beaver Stadium, based on their square footage, can have 996 square feet of signage. And they're close to that. So the bonus would be for every 5,000 seats, they can have 10% more signage. So for in simple terms, for every 5,000 seats, they can have another 10 square feet of signage. That's getting us in the ballpark.
Say that again, for every 5,000 seats, they would get what?
10 square feet.
10 square feet.
Approximately, they would get 9.9 square feet.
All right. And so they're currently sitting at how many square feet?
Now, again, like I said, their signs are 855 is what we are calculating. And again, that is taking out, we are not counting the line heads.
Right, those are
And
the
I'm not counting a couple places where it says Beaver Stadium.
Right.
I'm granting that is the address, and that is how I treat the other township buildings.
So is Home Shore Field at Beaver Stadium, is the Beaver Stadium excluded because that's the name of the stadium?
I'll have to look through, I went through this with Penn State, and I actually put that stuff back in the sign file.
Okay.
We would not allow any of the West Shore logos.
Right.
And I would either allow West Shore State, West Shore home field or Beaver Stadium,
Mhm.
but you're not getting both of those all on one thing, is all exempt.
So we have a
Either Beaver
formula.
Stadium or, yeah. I
So we
mean,
have
this
a
is such-
formula, but we tweak the formula. So it's confusing, and that's why I'm confused. So I appreciate you're trying to help me with that. And that's my concern with the ordinance, is that we have a formula, we have an ordinance, but we tweak it. And so how do we craft this so that there's less tweaking and just a really clear standard? And I'm still struggling with the square footage in terms of the cap. So PC has come in at recommending a 150% cap. Rich and Eric, you're at no cap at this point. The difference in the square feet at 150-foot cap, or 150% cap versus no cap is what?
150.
I just want one person to answer, please.
A cap at
One person.
150% would be 2,490 square feet.
2490. Okay.
With no cap, based on Beaver Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
it would be 3,083.
3,083. Okay, I'm sorry, Rich, you?
So
No, there's a couple different numbers in our agenda package, but
That's a problem, yeah.
it's not no cap, there's a functional cap. There are caps because it's based on seats, it's based on
It's
ground
based on
floor.
gross floor area.
Yeah, so there is a cap, it's done by, it's formulamatic that ends up being a cap.
And we're using seats as the standard to define that rather than the square feet. So we've used the square feet to calculate
He's actually
the
using
base.
both.
We're using both. So we've calculated the base based on square feet. And because we're looking at something unusual, an event, a large venue, a large event venue, stadium, arena, we're adding the seating capacity as a way to allow for more signage, more square footage.
Correct.
Okay, and have we defined, we're talking about illumination, in terms of the square foot of signs, what are the signs? Are the signs the home shore field at Beaver Stadium? Are we talking video display boards? What does, because if we put a sign that's home shore field on the side of the stadium versus we put a video display board,
Right now, there are only video display boards are only inside.
okay,
So they can put anything inside that stadium we want. We do not regulate.
of course,
interior
I
signage.
understand that.
So and those video boards are, I mean, they're partially signage. They do have signage on them from time to time.
Okay.
Anything that's facing inside that stadium is not.
All right, but isn't Susan's
Understood.
question more to what are we defining as a sign?
Correct.
Right.
On the exterior
Exterior.
of the building. And I think that the answer is we're defining as a sign anything, including video,
Okay.
constitutes a sign on the exterior. And I see Julian's got his
Yeah, I
hand
was just
up.
going to call on
Okay.
Julian. I'm going to ask Julian. Julian, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in here and, again, appreciate the conversation and just add some context to what you're discussing. I have been briefed on the plans for the 26-27 season. Unfortunately, nothing I can share publicly at the moment, although I did include an estimated amount of square footage in the letter that I submitted. But I also wanted to just mention that we don't have, as of right now, any plans for illuminated signage above the 25-foot mark. That would be potentially a video board that was discussed, I think, well back, almost a year and a half ago or so, that kind of sparked this larger conversation. So I just wanted to add that as of right now, those plans don't include anything higher than potentially, I say, mounted video board about 25 feet that would be utilized strictly on game day. And I also wanted to just make the clarification point on right. We're not talking about navigational signage, which I think is what I heard, right? The Beaver Stadium, et cetera, or Gate A, Gate B, things like that. This is, really what we're asking for is the opportunity to, and I think I've said this publicly before, to put a name on the side of a building or something like that, not illuminated or anything of that nature, but yes, to obviously try to, monetize those opportunities. So I just wanted to add that as context. I don't know if that's helpful or not. But for what it's worth, I hear the conversation and the subject of illuminated signage, and I just wanted to share that bit of information that I did have. So
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julian. I think you made a good point that the request, the original request for the signage change was based on a plan to do something different. And I think at the first Planning Commission meeting, one of the members of the public made the point that typically a plan comes forward as part of the request, and we don't know what that plan is. As you've shared, that plan is not public now. And nothing in this ordinance at this point restricts anything or regulates, I don't want to say restricts, but regulates, whether or not that becomes a digital sign. You don't have a plan for a digital sign, but we're not talking about how we address the issue of a digital sign and the height of that digital sign. At this point, it's the sign, whether or not you decide to use it as a digital sign. So that's a concern for me. I can see absolutely the height at a home shore field, which is not a digital sign, but if something were to come above that, and if it's not in the plan now, if it's in the plan in the future, and we haven't addressed that now in this ordinance, that could be a concern.
The only thing I would offer, there's other parts of the ordinance that defines signs. Nothing that we're doing in this.
Where is that?
Is defining. I'll let the zoning officer speak to that.
One thing you were asking about signage, and I know one of our early on meetings, Penn State needs to pay for a $700 million stadium renovation. They're looking to monetize things. I know it was mentioned the possibility of selling naming rights to the tower on the west side where the elevator shafts are. So some of this area would go to the Susan Trainer Tower, if you chose to donate enough money to put your name on it. And, possibly an end zone could be outside the stadium. Eric Bernier, north end zone. I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this is what they're asking, one of the reasons they're asking for this increased signage, so they can monetize some of this to help offset costs. I'm not 100% sure. I know I'm partially right here that this is one of the drivers, is they need this for revenue.
I think that's a reasonable conclusion.
Yes.
I do. I think that's absolutely a reasonable conclusion. I think my concern is coming at it from the perspective of the residents, and how will the signage impact the view shed for the residents, and then also the illumination. We've already agreed we're putting some illumination information into this ordinance, but we're going to do most of our illumination changes in the illumination ordinance. Gretchen, you asked for my comments at this point. I'm not sure that has clarified anything other than my concerns about the height, and also I'm personally more comfortable with the PC recommendation that we stay with a 150% cap at this point. And I think that all ordinances are living documents, we know that, and we can always come back at a later date and change that. Because these are big changes, and I can't honestly say I completely have my head around everything to the level of detail that you and you, Rich, and you, Eric, have, I'm more comfortable with the 150% cap.
I think I got a better deal with the end zone being named after me than the elevator shaft.
I agree.
I don't think anything's going to get named after me right now. But I want to get this right, and I want to do it in partnership with the university, but also with most consideration for the residents at this time. So.
Okay, I'm ready now. So I agree with what Susan just said, both in, pretty much everything. And one of the things that I want to elaborate on is that, and I can only speak for myself, one of 5, but coming in here, pretty new. The way that this has been presented to me, at least, I'm just really confused. And, one of the things that's really helpful is like to give feedback when something is presented and then say, well, this is what I don't understand, and this and this and this. And then if it looked like this, I would be able to have the information I need to make a good decision. Right now, maybe the information's there, but the way, I can't figure it out. The way it's been presented to me, I can't figure it out. I don't know what it currently looks like compared to what it would look like. I don't know how many birds have died versus how many birds maybe would die, or what it would look like from Eric's backyard, or mine, by the way, because I see Beaver Stadium from my yard too. I feel like I can't make a good, I can't provide good commentary other than the fact that from principle, I agree with Susan. And so, let me just make sure that's all I wanted to say. So the other thing is that one of my original questions, because I wanted to go last, because that's helpful for me, but I was gonna ask Julian, so what's the problem? Like how things are now versus how things Penn State wants to be. Like what is not there that needs to be there? And it sounds like the ability to put names so that they can monetize, if I understand correctly. So at least that's helpful to know. Did you want to answer that question, Julian?
That's what you've already answered, what I was going to reiterate.
Okay. And then,
And Julian,
I also
Julian,
just-
Julian,
if I can,
Julian,
I think the
if
initial,
Julian, if you,
issue
Julian,
that we saw was, and Mark had mentioned it before, right? Right now, we're limited to 960 square feet of signage for fourth biggest stadium in the world. And so, I think our ask was to look at it again, which has been done, and we're very thankful for that, and again, thankful for the work that staff has put in, and to just kind of reevaluate how Beaver Stadium is different from, other, I would say, I think the example of Walmart has been used in the past, and, our signage needs might be a little bit different than a place like that, just based upon the size of the stadium. And so I think that's what sparked this conversation to begin with. At least that was our intent, to just open it up, have a discussion, and look at that to see if we could increase the signage based upon the true size of the stadium.
can I finish?
yes, please.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you, Julian. Yeah, so that was one just basic question I had. It does seem like I did have it correct, that the ability to put names for monetizing. So it's just good to know, like, I'm just putting it down to the very basics because that's how I understand things. So if that's the case, then it seems like whatever minimal changes would need to occur to make that happen, because that's Penn State's goal, then that we want to work in cooperation and collaboration, and, we care very much about these relationships. So it's good to know what the goal is, and then how do we get there, to both maintain the health of the community, as Susan has spoken about in the past, as well as the ecological impact, et cetera, et cetera. And then one other thing that I think Susan brought up, and I just want to emphasize, is that this isn't just an ordinance for Penn State to put signs to monetize so that they can pay for the refurbishment of the stadium. This would also, as Susan has pointed out, would produce, a precedent. This would be an ordinance for everybody. And so, it's really hard for us we don't have a crystal ball to predict what the future looks like and what the ramifications, good or bad, could be We don't know that for sure, but we do need to keep in mind that whatever we put in this ordinance will indeed have future effects. And so to only be thinking about it in terms of this square feet and this, I think at least my lens, which is more helpful for me in my decision making, is more what is the overall impact for the community, for the stadium, for the fans who go to the football games, for the ecology. I mean, it's more organic and all-encompassing. And I think as council, like, that's where our lens is very high up, looking at the whole picture, not just the square feet here, so like I said, this is not all that digestible to me at this moment. I'm only one of 5, so I'm not gonna put any burdens on anybody, but at this point, with the way the information has been presented to me, I would default to what Susan said. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Any other questions, any comments? Mike?
No, I'll be honest, I'm struggling a little bit to nail this down. So I hear the discussion in some range on the idea of a cap.
Mm-hmm.
So we're between 150 and 200 roughly is what I heard, or uncapped. And what we're talking about is a range of about 500 square feet, 600 square feet in signage. So that's, you're starting to kind of zero in on that number. I also heard the concern around illumination, and particularly the height of illumination. So that's the piece I don't have any real clarity on at the moment. I will give you my own perspective, and for what it's worth, and I'm not a voting member of this board, but I think that's where your biggest impacts to the community rest in terms of external signage. Is illuminated signage high up on the stadium, bigger impact. And that's where I think staff was coming from with the idea of the 25-foot. Julian shared about the video board. We had heard that, not anything officially, so I appreciate him sharing that. So that was kind of the number that was thrown in there and that was in recognition of earlier conversations of keeping illuminated signage, particularly anything above the base number, of illuminated signage at a more human scale, downward facing, directed towards that fan experience, which was one of the things that they had talked about as well. That was the rationale behind what we had heard in earlier discussions and what staff has kind of brought forward as other considerations for you. In terms of the overall number, if it's non-illuminated signs, and again, I'm just sharing my own personal opinion, if it's non-illuminated signs, the impact in my mind is one of aesthetics on that particular building. Yeah, it's, if they put everybody's name all over the building, if anything, it just takes away from the aesthetic of the building. And that's a factor they would have to consider. It's once you hit that illumination where it becomes, in my mind, more of a community-wide impact. So.
Yeah, I actually think that the illumination thing, we've captured that. Okay, I mean, I've made a note at some point during this conversation that the bottom line is that there will be no illuminated signage to include video boards above X feet from the exterior concourse / sidewalks. I think that as soon as you decide whether that number is 25 or 45 or whatever, that does exactly what Mike has just captured here. You can't illuminate anything at the top of the stadium, right? If you want to put a sign there, okay, well then that becomes subject to this overall square footage thing, which we're struggling with. But I think in terms of addressing illumination, I think we have that part of it captured. I think we're getting the two confused, the square footage element versus the illumination element. But I think we've solved the illumination. It's pretty clear that, to me, it seems that there is a consensus of council, or at least that's my opinion, a consensus of council that we're not in favor of illuminated signs, which would include video boards above a certain elevation, taken from a standard measurement point, which would be a sidewalk / concourse, right? So I think we've solved that one as soon as we identify what
The height.
that height is.
Right.
And clean up the language a little bit.
Well, sure. The bigger issue that I'm hearing now has to do with the overall square footage. So just to put in perspective, this now becomes a math equation. And this isn't my strong suit. But we have 106,000 seats that we're working with, okay? The current amount of signage, based on the existing ordinance that they're allowed to have, is 996 square feet of signage, right? So that, you take 106 and you divide it by 996, that means that's 106.4 square feet for every, wait a minute, I'm now getting myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you
Whoa!
messed yourself up.
I just messed myself up. But you see where I'm going with, I mean, I'm trying to help.
Right.
I'm
not trying to make it worse.
Can I say something?
Tracy.
Because I didn't say anything. I think what Adam and Mike is saying is correct. In past conversations, the biggest issue, and we had people come in and talk to, was the illumination. Now it's seeming in this moment, this other is becoming an issue, which I don't think is as big as an issue as far as health-wise, as far as community involvement, than illumination. So I think we've gotten a little off task and made this bigger because numbers are now involved. But what from previous conversation, I'm not upset. It's just my voice is very soft today, and I got to talk as hard as I can, so I'm not upset. Please don't take it that I'm upset. But I just think that we're deviating from the original concern, which from conversations that I've heard sitting here in the past year has been the illumination and what that could cause for damage for what the gentleman talked about for the birds, for our community residents, for health and what have you. So I think, yes, we have solved that problem and that concern has been heard. Now where this other concern is in, I think that's like getting too much into the weeds, like what they decide to put on the building as far as doesn't illuminate, that doesn't go above a certain height, that's on them. It's really to the point where if it's ugly, it's on you. But are we making a decision that's best for our constituents when it comes to elimination? I think we are. We have solved that problem. And that, I think, was the original concern in it all. And I think that we need to get back to that and determine that. And because the conversation is going way too long over numbers of square feet. And I think that's all I have to say.
If I can, and it's funny because I'm kind of relating it back to the previous discussion about retrofitting.
Yeah.
So if we started today with a complete clean slate for Beaver Stadium, we recognize they have 996 square feet available. Under the existing ordinance, they could put that on the roof.
Right.
Illuminated.
Yeah.
So that's one point. So right now, they could do 1,000 square feet. If they were at zero,
Right.
they could do 1,000 square feet at 200 feet up.
Illuminated.
Illuminated.
Yep.
So that's one point to factor into this. They have that ability. If they wanted to scrap every sign on the building right now and start over, they could.
Right.
They could. So Mark had alluded to that in some of his earlier comments. Their base allocation can go anywhere. It's not written that way in what we've put together, but right now they can put it anywhere.
Right.
So that's a factor and something you need to consider. And take it out of Beaver Stadium for a second. Any event center could do the same thing.
Right.
Their base allocation is going to be significantly smaller
Right.
because nothing's the scale of Beaver Stadium. But the Jordan Center, if they wanted to scrap all their signs, they could put their entire base allocation on the roof.
Illuminated.
So that's something you need to be factoring into this.
And
if
we'll be
you're
addressing that in the illumination.
Right.
So we
right.
have that coming up.
When it comes directly to signage, you know, that's something else you need to dial in is, do you want to allow the base allocation to be anywhere on the building, and then anything that's in this extra category, that's tied to fixed seating, you know, that expansion of signage beyond their base allocation to have that limitation? Or are we talking the whole thing? Because that's another piece of this puzzle. And I think Tracy framed it very well. You know, and that's honestly where I'm at in terms of my personal feelings is 2,000, 3,000 square feet non-illuminated, that's an aesthetic issue. Once you hit illumination, that's a community issue. And I think that's where you need to focus a lot of energy. I don't have a personal preference as to the cap on this at all. I mean, you could remove the cap, and because it's such a specific entity to Beaver Stadium, nothing else is ever going to hit that number unless it's the scale of Beaver Stadium with that many fixed seats, because the other controls in this are your floor area and your fixed seating. The cap is a number basically to put a lid on that total number of signage. You remove that, the only one it really impacts is Beaver Stadium. So that, and again, I'm throwing personal thoughts out here, but you know, I think the point is valid. It's where the real power in what you're doing with the signage ordinance is around illumination. You know, the square footage number is very specific to the
And
individual
actually,
property.
We're not doing the illumination really in the signage ordinance. That's not what we're doing.
You're
We're
doing
going to
height.
do that in the illumination ordinance
Correct.
changes. So what we're saying, if I'm correct in understanding, is we have 3 members of council who are comfortable going with the signage ordinance changes with no cap, correct?
I don't know that we're there.
Okay.
If I could.
Okay.
So listening around, I heard of future effects. We kind of talked about that. There isn't going to be another Beaver Stadium in Center County for all intents and purposes, probably. So I don't know that we're setting a precedent that we need to be scared of in there. The height is a big thing in the illumination. And I think we've tried to pull that out and everything. The reality is 150% is a heck of a lot more than they are allowed now.
Right.
So we're benefiting in there. With that said, I think what was expressed is the 150,000 or 150% is arbitrary.
Right.
It's a number that the PC picked out. Well, we can pick a number too. You know, we're fully capable of that as well. It just, you know, so what principle are we protecting against? And as Tracy nailed it, it's the illumination above when it starts impacting our community. And so that's the one that, you know, really guided to. And again, the language in here, I was confused about it. Staff helped me clear it up. I had come in and said X percent, I mean, 95% has to be below 25 feet, you know, or whatever. I'd give you 5% up top if you really wanted to. The other thing that's confusing, potentially, is the bat signal on the sides of the scoreboards. Those are not classified as signs currently.
Right.
And so you see them, well, that's a sign. No, it's art. Is it art?
Yep, this was something that was.
No, I get it. No, I get it.
It's art.
That's what I'm
That's
just
what it
saying, but to a lot of people, you would look at that, it's a logo. Therefore, you know, logos are tied to businesses, da, 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 you know.
That was a decision another council made. That it
You were
was-
right. But we look at it in that lens, per se, and everything. So, I think we're closer than we're farther apart, but. And perhaps we need more, you know, something that shows us this is where they're at now, this is how it's calculated, this is how the base is calculated, you know, that breaks it down even further with the math of it, rather than just throwing numbers out across, especially if Adam's gonna do math.
Yeah, don't let me do that.
Lindsay?
I just wanted to say, you noted that right now, they could put an illuminated sign or a digital sign anywhere on the building, but currently, well, this ordinance would permit that, because currently, digital signs and electric signs are only permitted in the commercial and industrial zoning districts. This ordinance would change that to permit them in the UPD. So that's one change. And so really, if they wanted to put something digital at the top of the building right now, they wouldn't be permitted to unless we change that ordinance. So I just wanted to clear that up. Sure.
Yeah, again, there's other elements that say this is a sign, and this is how a sign is measured, and things like that, so.
Yeah, because I would say the bat signal is a sign.
But that was a great
Right.
response.
Okay, so.
You guys were going around, if I can just offer some interesting factoid.
One thing before you do, I would like to conclude this either that we're going to make the recommendation and finish the ordinance tonight and set the public hearing, or we're going to ask staff to take this back, clarify it for us, and bring it back to another meeting. So please clarify.
This was just clarify, as Rich brought into it again. Beaver Stadium's sort of an anomaly. The next biggest thing we have here is Jordan Center. 15,000 seats.
Right.
Surprising thing, Medler Field, 5,500 square feet. They would, these places that look big really aren't. We only have a couple things in this area in College Township or the center region that would even qualify for 10%, that's even have 5,000 fixed seats. And that kind of carries on as, Rich's last point, is Beaver Stadium is its own animal.
Yes.
And the chances of negative effects going outward are small.
You mean in terms of setting precedent?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, at this point, unless I am missing something, I think we need more clarification from staff. I think there have been multiple comments. Adam, any further comments?
I have none at the moment.
Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to ask that staff take the comments that have been brought forward tonight. I think they were good comments. I think you made good clarifications. Tracy and Rich, thank you for bringing that clarification, and Mike. And then I think we'll bring this back to the next meeting or the meeting after that, after you're able to make the changes. And it'll come back directly to council.
Could, as part of that, if we could, so Julian threw a number out there. Is his number reflective of how you've deemed things like the Beaver Stadium and all of that, and not counting toward that, or is it counted in, is his plan counting it in there? And just clarification, not looking for an answer right now, but is he using the same math, is Penn State using the same math to get to 2,600 square feet as we would be using
Our
in the
numbers
field?
came from Penn State, from the gross floor area of the stadium, and what they.
No, I got that. I'm talking about since we don't know what the proposed signage is.
I don't think they know yet.
Right, so the 26 is, may not be a real number either.
They did not give us a specific request, they just asked for more. And then they came back after the 150 recommendation and said, hey, could you look at just removing the cap?
So let's wrap this up. So, yes.
I have one question that relates to Rich's, and this is a question for Julian as much as anything, and it gets to that number question.
Right.
Julian, the 2,600 number, I think that was referenced in your memo, is that 2,600 above what you currently have, or 2,600 total?
2,600 total.
Thank you.
For the next meeting. Yeah, if we're not going to move this forward tonight, and it sounds like we're going to ask staff to come back, even though we seem to be down to one issue, but understand that we keep saying under the current ordinance they're eligible for 900 or that, based on gross floor, but that doesn't account for seating. The ordinance predates or doesn't account for a place that is a lot bigger, not because it has gross floor footage, but has 100,000 seats in it. So if it all, I mean, this is an important point, because it's not apples to apples, we're saying, but what would they be entitled to if those 100,000 seats counted as, in some way, gross floor footage? I'm not asking for the answer tonight, I'm just making a request that when we revisit this, what would be the number if way back when we created these ordinances or whatever, we factored in 100,000 seats on top of the gross floor. And again, I don't want to belabor this with an answer, but when we're going to revisit, if we're going to kick this back and we're going to talk about it, let's get a number that's more relevant to the true size of the stadium and what they would be entitled to if we gave some consideration to the 100,000 seats instead of just the same calculation we use for Walmart or Target or whatever.
Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that was kind of the impetus behind my math that I was doing, but I didn't.
Oh, no, I dredged that back up.
No, but I mean, it's kind of going in that direction. That was the intent, taking the existing maximum that they have under the current ordinance, but using the total seating capacity, and we've rounded it to 106. That equates to a number, but now, okay, I need to figure out the rest of the equation.
Right.
And I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, and I think this needs to be explained in a simple fashion that can make sense to all of us who are going to make this decision. And at this point, it is not clear. We continue to keep drilling down to finer points. I would ask staff to take all of the comments and please present back to us. It's not understandable to the five of us in the same way that we need it to be understood. And I think you made the point to have it back by next meeting.
Did I?
I think so.
You were trying.
You did.
Okay. I'll go with that.
But we also want to be expedient, and we want to get this decision made, and we don't want to keep doing this. And this will come back directly to council and not go back to PC at this point. Okay. Does that need a motion? No. Okay. All right, our last old business item is the Shiloh Road Corridor Partnership. Adam, you have information for us, please.
Well, yes, I do.
Thank you.
Included in your packet tonight is what was intended to be the finalized agreement related to the Shiloh Road Corridor Partnership. And council has had an opportunity on a couple of occasions to discuss this particular project. And essentially, I'll try to give a summary here. The Shiloh Road Corridor, which starts at the intersection of College Avenue, Shiloh Road, and extends essentially to the interchange with I-99, is what we're talking about when we reference the Shiloh Road Corridor. Along that corridor, there are 4 primary property owners in areas that are presently being developed and are yet to be developed. So the 4 property owners are the Maxwell site at Trout Road, the Burkentine or Crew 814 site that we worked with in the past. In Benner Township, there is the Ron Ferris, the Ray Hall site as it's been referred to. And also what has been referred to as the Clare site as well. And those are the 4 principal property owners. The concept here all along was to have a coordinated effort to enable improvements to be made within that corridor all at the same time, despite the fact that development will not necessarily occur simultaneous with that development or improvement, if you will, of Shiloh Road. So different property owners are going to be developing at different paces. The problem has been historically that the biggest impacts end up on the last individual that's in to make really expensive, expansive improvements to transportation elements. And this is an opportunity for the township, in partnership with these individual property owners, as well as in partnership with PennDOT, to change the approach and to address all of these issues, which will come over time all at once. And so that's kind of the base of what we're talking about doing here. The agreement that has been in the works now for a number of months essentially is the arrangement that has been reached between all the different property owners, and principally PennDOT, as well as with College Township and with Benner Township. And essentially, the project here is almost a $6 million project in total in terms of the amount of investment for transportation improvements along the entirety of this corridor. Through a combination of PennDOT funding coupled with grant funds from the state and coupled with the private investment that would be done, College Township would be able to bid this project, manage this project, and ensure that this project is brought to completion. And essentially, that's what the document, the agreement in front of you this evening does entail. Now, understand that this has been quite a process in trying to bring 4 private property owners into consensus. It's like their sign ordinance, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. It's difficult. It's not easy. And as a result of it not being easy, the agreement that you have in your packet has already been changed. Okay. Now, that said, a lot of the changes that have been made have been technical corrections, making sure that the property owner organizations their corporate names are properly identified, some things like that. A number of those kinds of things have happened. But the principal change that has happened is, since the iteration that was in your packet, the 4th property owner has decided to actually participate. Whereas the document that you had in your packet this evening contemplated only 3 of the 4 participating. The modification that has been made now contemplates all 4 of those property owners are going to be participating. That participation only changes the ratios that the individual private property owners are paying or contributing in terms of their own funds. It has no impact whatsoever on what College Township's obligations are relative to the bidding, awarding, inspection, coordination of this project. So I would offer council basically an option this evening, knowing what I've just described, even without seeing that change. You could approve the current, which you do not have in your packet, the current agreement, with the understanding that it's those changes and those changes alone that have been made. Or we could defer an adoption. If there was a motion to adopt the most recent version, I would strongly encourage it to be a conditional adoption based on the acceptance of the other parties, etc. But I think you have 2 options here. I can bring it back once it's finalized, or we could adopt it knowing that going forward it'd be a conditional adoption, but knowing that the changes that would be made are all on the private developer investment model as opposed to the obligations of the township. So that's kind of where we're at with that part of it. There's a second component to this, which is the need for an intergovernmental cooperation agreement specifically related to this project between College Township and Benner Township. Benner Township, because a significant portion, about 50% of this Shiloh Road corridor lies in Benner Township. College Township is going to take the lead and assume the responsibility for the coordination of this project. Benner Township has to agree to allow us to do that. That is why there's a need for the intergovernmental cooperation agreement. Benner Township is very much aware of this. Their solicitor has reviewed the agreement. Their solicitor is in the process of reviewing the intergovernmental cooperation agreement. And on that basis, I strongly recommend, if we do nothing with the agreement, as we've talked about moments ago, we do move forward with the intergovernmental agreement, but that as well to be a conditional approval, subject to Benner Township's approval of that document. That was really quick and probably really confusing, and I apologize, but...
It's in keeping with tonight's
Right?
agenda. It's right there. So, okay, as I understand, we have two options. We can either defer this and get the contract presented back with the four partners
right,
and in agreement, and then we would also then approve the draft intergovernmental, I mean, we need to get that contract before we approve the intergovernmental agreement.
Well, ideally. I don't believe it's a necessity.
Okay.
Ideally, that would be kind of the order of things. And just so everyone knows, this didn't change until yesterday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, this has been a very fluid type of a situation, and so I apologize, because at the time I thought I was giving council the final document for consideration tonight.
Rich, I'm going to call on you first, if I may. You have extensive experience with contracts. Would appreciate your opinion.
Thanks. I'll try as I can. If I'm reading this right, it really only, you're going to change attachment 6, the breakdown of who's doing what and their piece of the pie. But the legalese is not changing.
Correct.
You're adding a party, adding a signature line, adding a distribution portion out of the total cost.
That is correct.
So the agreement as a base is, I don't need to see. I trust that between the manager and the solicitor, we'll get the party added correctly. You had indicated that the intergovernmental agreement didn't really change. It did in one spot. Under definitions, the private partners are listed, so they would need
They'll have to be amended.
It would need it updated as well. But again, it's adding 4 eyes and everything. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm comfortable moving forward as a conditional and the good judgment of the manager and the solicitor, but is there pressing time on, is there an egg timer on this?
I mean, it depends what day you ask. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that has been very difficult to pin down.
Yeah.
For some of the private parties, yeah, this should have happened
This is late.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
For others, it has zero impact. For 3 of the 4, there is zero impact. For 1 of the 4, there is an impact relative to potential delay. But there's 6 total approvals that have to come.
Right.
And to the best of my knowledge, we will be the first to actually sign off on this.
Well, we might be the first to authorize our manager to potentially sign up. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. So I guess I look at it, if you bring it back, I don't know what we would offer additional than what is here.
That's helpful feedback.
I mean, that's what it boils down to for me. is we're not gonna legally critique it and all that, so.
Any concerns?
No concerns, but I do have a few comments. I wanted to say thank you, Adam. I don't think you need to apologize. I think you do a great job. Second of all, I wanted to say, I think there is precedent to move this forward, and I would be in agreement with moving this forward because of the fourth person coming on board, and I don't want to run the risk that they can change their mind. So I would say I would be in full agreement with pressing this forward because this was the hope, and the hope has arrived. Let's seize the moment. That's what I would say.
Agree with what Rich said, and also, you don't have to apologize because your first attempt at the stadium thing was far more confusing than this. So, this was a major improvement.
And you
Why, thank
summarized
you,
a very
Eric.
complex situation quickly.
Yes.
So, agree with Eric?
Gretchen's talking about being excited about what we're doing, and this, to me, because I'm a transportation nerd, is all, and by the way, I'm very excited about, what we're doing in the industrial zoning district.
Good.
But this really,
Excites you.
yeah, because this.
You don't see this.
This
Okay.
is cutting-edge progressive kind
Yeah.
of stuff,
Well,
and
we
we should
all
all be
think
very
of that.
proud of this, this intent of what we're doing here, so
Progressive.
it is.
Yes, it is. Gretchen?
Yeah, my only comment, I'll do whatever the majority wants, but in my experience, it's 10:30 something at night. If we do this first, it doesn't matter because others will do it and it doesn't have to be tonight for us. So just because, you said ideally it would be this way, but, why don't you do it this way? Or, you didn't say that, I don't want to put it, but anyway, for me personally, I have found that doing things that are best practice is generally the safest route, even for things you can't foresee in the future that could go wrong. So that's my, as one of five, what I think, but of course I would go with the majority.
Well, and I think at this point, I could accept a motion to approve the partnership agreement with language conditioning the fourth partner, if somebody would like to make that motion.
Well, the other thing, two things. You're absolutely right. We're spoiled that we've worked with this guy for a long time, and he's not going to put anything before us that puts us in that bad spot. And so we shouldn't take that for granted as understood by everybody, because everybody doesn't have that. So, that's an important point in it and everything. And again, I guess I look at it that, we're not going to legally critique it that much and stuff. But I think Tracy brought up a great point, that while things are going, you keep, and we're leading the way, we're saying it, go. But the other side of it is, they could fall back out.
That's true.
And we're back right with this agreement. So that's another reason I'm comfortable.
And if all four don't sign, there's not an agreement.
There's not an agreement, yeah. Yeah,
So-
until it's all signed on the dotted line, it doesn't matter, but, yeah.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. I'll move to approve the Shiloh Road Partnership Agreement and authorize the township managers to execute same contingent on all four parties agreeing, or all the parties agreeing and not revising it. Otherwise, it comes back to us. As is, okay.
Is there a second?
Second. Lord of Jesus.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, that carries unanimously. We have one more motion. Would anyone like to make the motion for the intergovernmental cooperation agreement?
You did such a good job the first time.
Well, this one is, I'm not sure I understand the condition that you suggested.
Well, the condition is, we just wait until Benner Township executes it.
Okay, so the motion is to
Approving the intergovernmental cooperation agreement and authorizes the council's chair to execute the same pending the approval of the Benner Township.
Okay,
Board
so
of
just as is
Supervisors.
written. Okay.
Just, again, there is
With the
a,
fourth partner.
With the fourth name.
there is a little tweak, so, finalizing and
The
Subject to-
amended, or the,
potentially amended, yeah.
Yeah.
So something along the lines of what you said last time.
Right.
all right, so I'll move that, to approve the draft intergovernmental cooperation agreement as amended
Yes.
tonight with Benner Township and authorizes the council chair to execute same pending the approval of Benner Township Board of Supervisors.
Yes, that's perfect.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, so we're going to move on to new business, which is not confusing. Mike, you're going to explain it? And you're going to explain our action. I'm not going to try
Right.
and summarize that now.
We need to talk about a cap and square feet. No.
Okay.
Two items, both related to Thompson Woods Preserve and both very straightforward. The first item, NB1A, is the Forest Restoration Plan update. As you'll recall, back in 2025, both College Township and State College Borough Councils authorized the Thompson Woods Preserve Governance Committee to contract with Mike Wolf of Appalachian Forest Consultants to perform an update on the forest restoration plan for the Thompson Woods Preserve. Mr. Wolf and his firm were the ones that did the original 2018 plan. He has completed his work at the end of 2025, and what was attached was that update for your review. The plan provided a detailed assessment of forest conditions and overall health. He followed the same model that he used in 2018. Spoiler alert, the Thompson Woods Preserve is not overly healthy condition. And therein lies the strength of this update, as he is providing options to how to start moving the Thompson Woods Preserve towards a healthy forest condition. One of the options he provided was do nothing. That is not a tenable option, but the other three are. There's strength in that, and certainly staff will work with the Thompson Woods Preserve Governance Committee, as well as staff with State College Borough, to bring forward elements of this as we contemplate our CIP and budget moving forward. Both the Governance Committee and Advisory Committee have reviewed the plan update and found it meeting or exceeding expectations for what we were looking for. And the Governance Committee ultimately made a recommendation that both College Township and State College Borough accept the Thompson Woods Preserve Forest Restoration Plan update as written.
I move to accept the Thompson Woods Preservation Forest Restoration Plan updated as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions for staff? Any comments? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed, same sign? Okay, the motion carries. We have a second part?
The second piece of this is a little less clear, but I think I can walk through it pretty quickly. As you recall, the governance structure, when it was originally contemplated for Thompson Woods Preserve 2.5, 3 years ago at this point, contemplated two committee structure. The Governance Committee, which had its own drive of more providing purpose-focused oversight of the preserve matters, making recommendations, etc. The Advisory Committee was strictly that, an advisory body, and it was more of a technically oriented body to provide technical assistance to the Governance Committee to craft their recommendations. Think about it in the Planning Commission Council format. Planning Commission provides you technical advice on a recommendation that you ultimately form into policy. That's how these two were envisioned to function. For a variety of reasons, that hasn't necessarily worked out the way it was envisioned. The Governance Committee structured very formally and functions as an ABC. So they have regular meetings, regular advertised meetings, very good attendance from the 5 voting members that are on there. And to this point, they have kind of stayed in their lane in terms of what they're envisioned to do. The Advisory Committee was actually structured very informally. They were not planning to meet regularly, more of an ad hoc, no real formal structure to them. And because a lot of the time was at least the initial years of the governance structure were focused on how do we do things. It's rested very much with the Governance Committee. So as a result, the advisory committee has not met often, only a handful of times over that time period. And by virtue of that, the governance committee has kind of stepped into their lane a little bit and taken some of that. And we've actually had advisory committee members attending governance to provide insight, primarily someone from Clearwater Conservancy. Based on the experience to date, both the governance committee and advisory committee met in February to review a proposal about consolidating into a single governance structure, a single committee. This would be a 12-member governance committee comprised of 5 voting members. These are the voting members of the governance committee. So there's 2 College Township reps, 2 State College Borough reps, and 1 rep from the Center Region Parks and Rec Authority. This appointee can be a member of the board or a designee approved by the board, but they cannot represent or reside in the township or borough. The intent of that was to not give one municipality a voting block. The second part of this new committee structure would be 7 non-voting ex officio members, and they would be the original members of the advisory committee. 1 rep from Clearwater, 1 rep from Center Region Parks and Rec, 1 rep from the Valemont Homeowners Association, 1 rep from Thompson Woods Property Owner Association, and up to 3 total representatives, no more than 1 from each of the Conservation District, Penn State Department of Ecosystem Science and Management, and DCNR. Attached to this was 1, the amended intermunicipal agreement, and 2, the resolution R2612, which would make that amendment to the intermunicipal agreement. The action requested is that you give some consideration to this. If you're comfortable with this consolidation, it will require a motion to approve resolution R2612 to amend the intermunicipal agreement between College Township and State College Borough pertaining to the Thompson Woods Preserve governance structure.
Thank you for that, Mike. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I'm prepared if there's no questions.
Well, I was going to ask, we could ask questions after we make the motion, right?
Sure.
All right, any questions? Rich, since you may have some?
No, I was prepared to make the motion.
Tracy, any
No
questions? Eric, questions?
Nope, but I'll make the motion if Rich doesn't.
Well, we'll ask Gretchen. Do you have any questions? Okay, who would like to make the motion?
I want Eric to now.
Okay.
Tracy, do you want to make the, who wants to make the motion?
I move to approve Resolution R-26-12 to amend the intermunicipal agreement between College Township and the State College Borough pertaining to the Thompson Woods Preserve governance structure.
Second.
Okay.
All right, now we can discuss.
Any other
We already
questions?
did. Forgot.
We already did.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for
Okay.
that. Just one note, I will also be at the Borough on Monday night
Yes.
if you want to hear the same presentation over
You'll
again.
probably have a long meeting. The next item up, we have staff informatics, their council staff other matters. If there are none of the above, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.
Hopefully you're not on